diplomatic missions, or academic circles. Each one of us has a profound calling to be a peacemaker, just as the Word of God instructs us. And today I want to highlight on the nexus between cultural diplomacy and God's vision for unity and peace, as well as our mandate to live at peace with everyone. First and foremost, we need to appreciate as different languages, cultures, and ideologies, yet God calls us to seek peace with all people. Cultural diplomacy allows us to bridge the gaps between these differences, promoting harmony without erasing the uniqueness of each culture. But the second thing, and very important also, is that God calls us to appreciate the power in cultural diplomacy. The power in cultural diplomacy, connected to human relations and understanding. Cultural diplomacy involves sharing the beauty of one's nation through art, music, language, and tradition. It builds mutual respect and breaks down barriers of misunderstanding. As Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9 and verse number 22, that I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. And by engaging with other cultures, we become bridges, creating opportunities for peace and cooperation. But a third very important thing is that God calls us to behold diplomacy as a reflection of his design for reconciliation. Diplomacy reflects God's design for reconciliation. And at the heart of cultural diplomacy is reconciliation, restoring relationships and forging connections, just as Christ reconciled are called to bring nations together. The students here today are future leaders in this mission, learning that diplomacy is not just about negotiation, but about understanding the soul of a nation. And in the same way that Jesus spoke the language of the people in his time, we must learn the cultural language of the nations we engage with. And therefore, to the students that are here, I want to
reminded us that we have been shared the reflection that we can see that there is the forging of peace, there is the forging of relations, there is the calling for cultures to come together for the global peace. Now, again, for the second time, we are going to be entertained by the Daystar University Choir, one of the groups of the reigning giants of this university, as they entertain us with a special piece of music. Daystarians, thank you very much.
Jambo, jambo bwana, habari gani? Zuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa. Kenya yetu hakuna matata. Sema jambo, jambo, jambo bwana, habari gani? Zuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa. Kenya yetu hakuna matata.
Then
Thank you. Thank you very much. And this song is synonymous of what Kenya is, Hakuna Matata. However, something special about this choir, seated in the Department of Language and Performing Arts, the School of Communication, it is composed of students of music and other students, and they are the heart of Daystar. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to welcome Reverend Dr. Patrick Musembi, who is the immediate former Dean of the School of Arts and Social Sciences, but now Director of Daystar Leadership and Professional Development Program, to give us the opening remarks. Daktari, welcome.
Your Excellencies, honorable guests, esteemed colleagues, faculty, and students, good morning. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this year's Diplomatic Day, themed Expanding Horizons, the role of cultural diplomacy in shaping global careers in international relations. First and foremost, we are deeply honored by your presence today. Your participation speaks volumes about your commitment to the power of cultural diplomacy and to fostering the next generation of leaders in international relations. And we want to thank you for taking your time to join us for this special occasion this morning. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Laban Peter Ayiro, and our Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic, Research, and Student Affairs, Professor Faith Guru, here present representing the Vice Chancellor. Your unwavering support and visionary leadership made today's event possible. Without your guidance and dedication to empowering our students and faculty, we wouldn't be celebrating this remarkable moment. We are deeply honored by your presence. Allow me to recognize the incoming Dean, School of Arts and Social Sciences, Dr. Josephine Munyao, and at this point I would like to ask her to stand. Let's appreciate Dr. Josephine Munyao. And our head of department, Dr. Justus Musia, seated in front of me here. These two have been instrumental in nurturing the academic growth of our students. I also want to take the moment to acknowledge the tireless efforts of the faculty who have provided invaluable support and guidance to our students, that this is purely a student, that this is purely connecting hearts, connecting minds across borders. And as we share our Kenyan culture with our esteemed guests today, we contribute to a larger global conversation of understanding the place of peace. It is this exchange that helps academic, research, and student affairs, Professor Faith Nguru, to share our remarks, and thereafter, the program will continue.
By a gentleman from India. And those roots, those ideas were still coming through. What I'm saying is that our interaction with people from other cultures doesn't just end where we first meet them, but there is a way in which the future can be guided and shaped by the people that we meet, and therefore the need for exposure to different cultures, the need for that respect. And therefore, Your Excellency, the Ambassador Michael Lotem, State of Israel, Your Excellency Ambassador Marie Charlotte Tang, the Republic of the Philippines, Your Excellency Ambassador Morakot Jane Mathkon, Kingdom of Thailand, Ms. Adriana Teres Ribeiro, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Brazil, Honorable Luyai Caleb Amisi, Member of Parliament and Member of the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee in the National Assembly, Dr. Rosemary Anyona, Acting Deputy Director General, Cultural Diplomacy Directorate, distinguished guests, Daystar University Peace and International Studies Students Association, faculty and staff of Daystar University, ladies and gentlemen, namaste. Wishing you a good morning, wishing you the Lord's blessing, as I welcome you on behalf of the Vice Chancellor to Daystar University. And it is our honor and great privilege to host this Diplomatic Day event. As has been mentioned, my name is Professor Faith Nguru, the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of academic, research, and student affairs, and I'm honored to be part of this transformative event organized by the Daystar University Peace and International Studies Students Association, along with the Department of Peace and International Studies in the School of Arts and Social Sciences, and staff have been recognized from that school. Reflecting on the theme for today, Expanding Horizons, the role of cultural diplomacy in shaping global careers in international relations, I want to take a moment to echo the incredible cultural diversity that enriches our community here at Daystar University. As many of you may be aware, our university is a vibrant tapestry woven from various local and international cultures. And we are very fortunate to have a rich blend of perspectives brought to us by our university students from different backgrounds, countries, and traditions. And this diversity not only enhances our academic experience, but also prepares us to thrive in an increasingly globalized world. We are starting to define cultural diplomacy, and one of the definitions that we have for this day is that it is the exchange of ideas, information, art, language, and other aspects of culture among nations and peoples in order to foster mutual understanding. And this is more than just an academic concept, as I have tried to explain. It is an essential practice that fosters mutual understanding and respect among nations. Cultural diplomacy fosters intercultural competence, the ability to interact effectively with people from different cultures. And today, we are privileged to have with us distinguished panel of ambassadors, foreign delegations, and honorable members of the National Assembly and other experts in the field of international relations who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience. And to our students, this is your opportunity to engage with our panelists, ask questions, and seek advice on navigating the challenges and opportunities within the realm of international relations. Your inquiries could spark valuable conversations that illuminate new perspectives in this field. In closing, I want to express my gratitude to our esteemed guests for their willingness to share their expertise and experience with us today. They have been very generous with their time and their energies to come all the way to our main campus. Your participation enriches our understanding and inspires the next generation of diplomats and cultural ambassadors. And on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Laban Peter Ayiro, I officially welcome you all to Daystar University for a wonderful day. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Please, let's give a hearty clap to our DVC Academic and Students Affairs Professor Faith Nguru. We love her so much, and at Daystar we call her the mother of the university. And indeed, she does that. She has been the arbiter of peace in many of negotiations here in Daystar University, and of course, she leads this culture. Now, we love guests, don't we? And to appreciate our guest today, we have a guest choir Ngeria Boys High School. Are you ready? Ngeria Boys High School, you have been kindly asked to come and give us a number, even as we start to prepare for the most important part of this event, which are going to be speeches from various dignitaries here with us. Please take your space, Ngeria Boys. And they are being assisted by the School of the Choir, the directors there, Moses Alubala and Jacqueline Wesonga from the Language and Performing Arts Department. Karibuni.
Doom, 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 doom. Doom, doom, doom. Doom, 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 doom. Doom, doom. Berelia, oh my God. Masoketa kia berelia. Masoketa kia berelia. Berelia. Masoketa kia berelia. Berelia. Masoketa kia berelia. Masoketa kia berelia. Masoketa kia berelia. Berelia. Masoketa kia berelia. Berelia. Masoketa kia berelia. Masoketa.
What an amazing team this is. Thank you very much. This high school gentlemen with very, very aspiring angelic voices. And I see them as aspiring Daystarians. We already have a choir for them. That's right. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, help me to give this moment the honor that it deserves. And I am here humbly and honored to invite Honorable Ambassador, His Excellency, Michael Lotem. He is the ambassador of Israel to Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Seychelles, and ambassador designate to Tanzania. His Excellency Ambassador Michael Lotem is a career diplomat, born in Haifa, Israel, and has spent more than 17 years in various missions abroad. Michael is married to Mrs. Yahel Magovisky. I hope I got that right. And is father to 3 children, Susie, Boaz, and Yoav. Michael began his diplomatic career in Africa, in Swaziland, in early 90s. His previous diplomatic missions include, amongst others, Ambassador of Israel to Azerbaijan, Ambassador of Israel to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and Consul General of Israel to St. Petersburg in Russia. His Excellency Michael Lotem served as a special envoy for energy in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Israel, and participated in the formulation of Israel's gas export policy, developing contacts with government and companies. Please welcome, let us welcome in a special way His Excellency Michael Lotem, the ambassador to Israel.
Morning. Professor Nguru, Deputy Vice Chancellor, my colleague Ambassador of the Philippines, leadership of the university, students, and the amazing choir, really, good morning. Now, I'm tempted, of course, to deviate from protocol. You know, talking about culture, deviating from protocol is a basic thing you do in Israel. I always tell people here, when we send the British home, we send them with the protocol. But I'll try to behave myself. So my first dilemma was, should I mention anything about the Iranian attack yesterday evening when 200 missiles tried to penetrate Israel? Not very successfully, but I'll leave it for another time when the Department of International Relations will invite me to speak. I will mention that a couple of weeks ago, we hosted 20 brilliant students in Naivasha for 3 days. 10 of them were from this university. It was a sheer joy, and I liked very much that they got used to the Israeli. The first thing we try to convey is say whatever you want. If you object to anything that we say, even better. Don't agree, disagree. And they kept it. So that was real joy. I am going to share with you a few, let me put my, to keep time, a few of my ideas about culture and diplomacy. I can't promise that all my colleagues will agree, not my colleagues here and not my colleagues in the ministry, but I share with you my opinion, okay? Now, I found one definition for cultural diplomacy may best be described as a course of actions which are based on and utilized the exchange of ideas, values, traditions, and other aspects of culture or identity, whether to strengthen relationships, enhance social cultural cooperation, promote national interest, and beyond. Cultural diplomacy can be practiced by either the public sector, private sector, or civil society. Now, of course, it's not something new. All China used to do it, to practice it. The Roman Empire, the Church, of course, in the Middle Ages, the Brits, the US, everybody tries to do it these days. And I thought of dwelling on the question whether it is efficient or not. Does it bring results? But of course, to answer this, the following question would be, what is the aim of my action? And what is the best vehicle to get to this aim? For too many decades, when you were talking about Israel, and if I would have asked you to mention 3 things related to Israel, I guess you would have mentioned the Israeli Defense Forces, the Mossad, and maybe Uzi, that's submachine gun. And in 2007, we decided that we need to make a change. And when we tell you Israel, you should be thinking about other things. And of course, we're mainly speaking about Europe and North America. And we launched a program which was called Brand Israel in 2007. The idea was to treat it as something, an item that you need to brand, to sell the country, the identity of the country. There were quite a few researches that were done in different places in 80 countries. And we found out, of course, that most of the public doesn't care about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And if before we were mainly busy with thinking, how can I turn around the Palestinian argument, then we realized if 20% of the population have an interest, that means 80% don't have an interest in the conflict. So let's speak with them. And let's find out what are their interests. And then, of course, the program was built to speak about Israeli innovation. And I believe that at least part of you know the book Startup Nation, and to speak about water, about agriculture, about Israeli art, about Israeli science, music, cinema. And it proved quite well. It, you know, in many places, including in Kenya, when you will ask what are the first ideas or words that come to your mind when you mention Israel, so of course here it will be the Holy Land, but agriculture, water. So I believe that not too many will go into the conflict. And actually, we did this small test with the students in Naivasha. We asked them to write one or two words that come to their mind when they think about Israel. Now, was it a successful program, this brand Israel? I have mixed feelings about it, and my aim is to confuse you as well. Why should I be the only one confused? We succeeded in changing, in approaching these cross-cultural relations to relate and to make contact with new audiences, with new groups, not only with those who are interested in politics. So if it's cinema, if it's art, but then I'm asking myself, is this the main role of the Minister of Foreign Affairs? We have Minister of Economy should be mostly or solely busy with business. We have Minister of Culture and so on. But what is my role as a diplomat, as an employee of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? I need first and foremost to bring political results, right? And unfortunately, and again, I take one example, but quite an important one, I would say, North America and Europe. October the 7th, last year, the Hamas attack, massacre in Israel, started 6:30 in the morning on Saturday, Jewish holiday. By midday, Israel has not shot even one single shot. In Harvard University, there was already a letter circulating blaming Israel. And we invested so much in this cultural diplomacy in the universities. So was it a success? And then we've been seeing in the last year, the anti-Semitism in Europe, things that you would not have thought about in most of the Ivy League universities in the States. And this is exactly where we were aiming to, let's talk computers, let's talk AI, let's talk biotechnology. Forget about the conflict. And we find ourselves a year later dwelling on this and seeing all these phenomena. So I have mixed feelings about it. One more thing that I realized, and this is for my encounter with especially the leadership of the clergy in Kenya. Rainforest basically was something that I thought before. I was in minority, I guess I'm still in minority in my ministry about it. I was talking with the leadership, and the discussion begins with, we love Israel. And they keep embracing us. When you go into the details, they don't know. They know Old Testament, I'm sure much better than I do, but they don't know contemporary Israel. But then I found out it doesn't matter, because these guys in Harvard probably knows the details very well. Does it help me? Then I realized that when we speak with is cross-cultural, we have to go and understand what are the feelings. We were always aiming at the head, trying to convince, trying to talk logic. But it's in the heart. Sometimes it's in the pocket, sometimes in other areas, but we have to talk a different language. So it's a very complicated and confusing situation. Who is the best vehicle? What is the best vehicle to convey the message? Is it the government? So I'm sure that many will say, no, 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 not government, because once I post something or I say something, okay, that's the obvious. It's the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying it. So it doesn't go through. But I'm not sure even about this, because when I look on other governments that say things that I don't like, I find out that it does go through. Is it a matter of what I give? What people have to benefit from Israel? Not even this. So, as I said, my aim was to confuse you. I hope that I managed to confuse you. There's no one answer. And speaking about culture, we diplomats too often are deaf, unfortunately. We come, this is my 7th posting, but in many cases, people come to preach you, to tell you, not to listen. Israelis are very good in this, unfortunately. But if you listen, I'll give you an example, nothing with politics. 2 weeks ago, I had here the CEO of the Israeli Innovation Institute, which is a top institution in Israel. And when we spoke on the Zoom before he came, he wanted to focus on environment, technology, desertification, and so on. And then he told me, Kenya needs it. And he gave me the whole speech. And I told him, that's your first mistake. Don't come knowing what Kenya needs. You have to ask the Kenyans, what do they think they need? And this is something we do very often. Because we think, for good reasons, in many cases at least, we think, okay, your cow gives only 3 liters of milk a day, you can easily take it up to 25. Let me tell you how. But maybe he's not interested in 25 liters of milk a day. What else can I tell you? I will just sum up that using culture and cultural activity as a tool is complicated. When I was in Vienna, I was covering Slovenia. And with all our attempts to get one line into the main newspaper in Slovenia, one line, political, no go. They wouldn't. But then came one day the leading Israeli modern dance group, Batsheva, really good. So the same newspaper that would not take one sentence, the whole front page was about the Batsheva performance. And I thought, wow, who cares what they think about politics? Look how they love us when it comes to dance art. But then again, if I'm trying to influence or to shape or to contribute to the shaping of a policy towards Israel, does it matter or not? I leave it with you. Complicated one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give a round of applause again? Thank you. And I think just a key takeaways that really are resonating right now, His Excellency, the Ambassador speaks about the role of universities, and also an emphasis there on cultural activity as a tool to bring people together, fostering cohesion and unity. And now I want to welcome our second speaker, and she is Her Excellency Ambassador Marie Charlotte Gitang. She is the Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines to the Republic of Kenya. Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs. Other positions she has held in the DFA including acting as Assistant Secretary of the Office of the Policy Planning and Coordination, Director of the North Asia Division of the Office of Asian and Pacific Affairs, and Special Assistant to the Philippine Secretary of Foreign Affairs. In the Foreign Service, she served as the Philippine Consul General in Guangzhou Ministry and Consul General at the Philippine Embassy in The Hague, and in various positions at the Philippine Embassy in Beijing. Here, Her Excellency Tang holds an MA in Asian Studies from the University of the Philippines and an AB in Journalism at the University of Santa Thomas in Manila. And I'm smiling because I'm also a journalist. Thank you very much and welcome.
Professor Faith and Guru, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Research and Students Affairs of the university.
Excellency, Ambassador Michael Lotem, my colleagues from the other embassies, all the students, faculty members, and staff of Daystar University, a very good morning to you. Thank you for the warm welcome and the beautiful music that welcomed us. Good morning. So first of all, I would like to extend a very big thanks for the invitation to speak to you today on cultural diplomacy. And I look forward to interact with the young audience today. So before we continue, I would like to take a moment to introduce the Philippines to those who may be unfamiliar with our beautiful. This will provide the context for our approach to cultural diplomacy. First, the Philippines is an archipelagic state in Southeast Asia with more than 7,000 islands. 7,000 islands, more than 7,000 islands. So Kenya lies around 9,000 kilometers west of the Philippines across the Indian Ocean. As an archipelagic state, the Philippines is completely surrounded by water. It is one of the 17 mega-diverse countries with rich and unique biodiversity, both on land and in its marine ecosystems. It is the first republic in Asia and a thriving democracy with all the complexities that come with it. So while it is half the size of Kenya in terms of land area, the Philippines has twice as many people with a population of more than 110 million. So like Kenya, so it's double your population. So like Kenya, it has a very young population. English is a second official language or business language, just like Kenya. Like Kenya, again, the Philippines is a developing country which is working very hard to bring sustainable development to its people. In recent years, the Philippines has emerged as one of the most dynamic economies in the Asia-Pacific region, with a GDP growth rate of 5.6% in 2023. In the multilateral arena, the Philippines is a founding member of the United Nations. Like Kenya, it is a constructive member of the international community in promoting peace and sustainable development based on equity and justice and the sovereign equality of states and the rights and dignity of all peoples. So as a result of its geography and its history, the Philippines has an Asia-Pacific culture enriched with Hispanic, Latin, and Euro-American influences. But at the heart of the Philippines are its people, who are known all over the world for being warm, welcoming, hardworking, and very resilient. So that, ladies and gentlemen, dear students, is a snapshot of the Philippines from which we draw the ingredients in conducting cultural diplomacy. So that's an introduction. If you wish to know more, I think we have a booth somewhere in the university. Please go and visit. So culture plays a vital role in diplomacy by serving as a bridge that connects people across the world. It shapes how we interact, communicate, and build relationships with the international community. Cultural diplomacy is part of the DNA of Philippine embassies and missions abroad. The law that governs our foreign service mandates all our embassies and missions abroad to foster cultural relations and with other countries and enhance the Philippine image internationally. As a developing country and a nation with a rich cultural heritage and a diverse population, the Philippines leverages cultural diplomacy to promote our identity abroad, engage with our diaspora, foster mutual understanding, and strengthen ties with countries. Cultural diplomacy has been recognized to open doors to political and economic initiatives. Political initiatives, maybe not so successful with Israel, but it has been recognized as a tool to open doors to political and economic initiatives and the protection and promotion of our nationals abroad. It contributes to the Philippines' soft power, which, as you all know, as Joseph Nye describes, is the ability to influence others through attraction rather than coercion. Reflecting our commitment to cultural diplomacy, cultural agreements are usually one of the first bilateral agreements we sign with countries. Last year, the Philippines signed a memorandum of understanding with Kenya on cultural cooperation, the only second agreement between our two countries. As diplomats, we strive to help others understand our culture, find common ground in our ideals and values, and foster better relations for mutual benefit. So the participation of the Philippine Embassy in today's event is an example of cultural diplomacy. So ladies and gentlemen, students, dear students, the concept of cultural diplomacy, as Ambassador Lotem said, is broad, multifaceted, and multi-layered. It's very complex, and it's not easy to define or to identify what you did well where, but it's part of the toolbox. And there are numerous ways and platforms for cultural diplomacy, which many of our students here must have already learned. But in the interest of time, I'll just highlight three things. Cultural diplomacy paves the way for conflict resolution. It is not the sole domain of governments. Globalization, international migration, and the rise of digital platforms have created both opportunities and challenges for cultural diplomacy. First, in today's rapidly changing world with complex geopolitical developments, cultural diplomacy continues to have a pivotal role to play when relations between states are tense, or when negotiations for solutions to a global problem seem hard to reach. Cultural diplomacy paves the way for conflict resolution. For the Philippines, which is a firm advocate of the Pacific settlement of disputes and intercultural and interreligious dialogue, cultural diplomacy has been used to ease political tensions with other nations and to address negative perceptions of the country. When we have occasional misunderstandings with our neighbors, cultural and people-to-people relations continue. Even when we have misunderstandings, these exchanges continue, providing a solid foundation to continue dialogue to resolve our differences. In our immediate region, the Philippines is one of the 10 founding members, it's one of the members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. This organization has been credited with maintaining peace in our part of the region, which is very diverse politically and culturally. A key reason for this success is the commitment of the organization to developing not only political and economic communities, but also a social-cultural community that emphasizes shared values amidst our diversity. The focus on common identity lays the foundation for a shared future. Yes, and the value of cultural diplomacy in our complex times was also reaffirmed just last week at the United Nations, when the Philippines joined the world in adopting the Pact for the Future, under which we pledged to promote culture, recognizing it as an important enabler of sustainable development. On my second point, cultural diplomacy is not the sole domain of diplomats and the public sector. It involves individuals, organizations, artists, educators, students like you, youth, business, and our diaspora. To illustrate, if I ask you, from where did you first learn about the Philippines? It's a question. Any volunteers to answer? From where did you first learn about the Philippines? More questions. Do you have any positive sentiments about the Philippines? Yes, please. When did you first, how did you first learn about the Philippines? Telenovela, okay. Good. So do you feel you have a connection with the Philippines? Yeah, okay. So the sources of your, as you can see, the sources of your sentiments or perceptions are usually the result of cultural diplomacy or at work. In my casual conversations with Kenyans, I found out that they usually feel a connection with the Philippines either through a member of the Filipino diaspora, we have millions of them, or through Philippine soap operas, which have resonated and gained a significant popularity in Africa. Thus, though not from the public sector, they exemplify cultural diplomacy in action. Through them, a shared value is identified and a connection is made between Filipinos and Kenyans. This has led to a better understanding and appreciation of each other, leading to stronger relations between our two peoples and countries. In this regard, with millions of our nationals overseas, the Philippine diaspora plays a crucial role in cultural diplomacy by acting as informal ambassadors of Filipino culture abroad. Just as Philippine embassies and missions worldwide protect and promote the interests of our Filipinos overseas, Philippine cultural diplomacy also includes partnering with, supporting, educating, and empowering our diaspora in promoting Philippine culture. For instance, we support Filipino communities in organizing festivals and events that highlight our cultural identity. These not only help preserve the Filipino cultural identity abroad, but also introduce our traditions to the global audience through them. On my third point, building on my second point, globalization, international migration, and digital platforms have created new opportunities and challenges for cultural diplomacy. While in-person interactions enrich cultural experiences, accessible digital platforms now allow cultural diplomacy to extend beyond physical boundaries, providing an additional channel for engagement. During the pandemic lockdowns, our foreign ministry showcased Philippine culture online. We sent cultural kits, these come in small boxes, to our embassies, which shared the kits with participants in their host countries. So we had like each embassy given 10, 20 boxes of a kit, and we sent them all over the world. So at the set time, participants tuned in to Facebook to engage in activities like cooking a Filipino snack, learning a folk dance, joining a festival, or making a Christmas lantern. Personally, I thought this was a refreshing and innovative idea to create a connection across the world during one of the loneliest times of our modern existence. So some Kenyans were able to participate in these activities that went on for a year. and as well as the other countries under the embassy's jurisdiction. However, cheaper and more accessible media technology and platforms also mean that anyone can share content online and shape popular perceptions, which can sometimes blur the lines between fact and fiction. Cross-checking sources and verifying facts have become standard practices in responsible media. As nations compete for attention and influence, the risk of misinformation can distort cultural narratives and impact public perception negatively. Rapid globalization, international migration, and social media have also tended to standardize or homogenize cultural expressions, which dilutes or erodes a country's identity and distinctiveness. Thus, being aware of these challenges and addressing them are essential for effective cultural diplomacy. With these 3 points, I have hoped to have shown that cultural diplomacy is still very much relevant and essential than ever in today's context, especially in these complex times where peace is constantly under threat, where nations compete to assert national identity amidst globalization and rapid technological advancements. So, dear students, as you continue your educational journeys and aspire to a successful career in international relations, please remember that culture is one of your most powerful tools in diplomacy, crucial for navigating our increasingly interconnected world. But before I end, I would also like to share an anecdote from the head of the United Nations in Nairobi, who said that Africans love to talk. Is this true? Yeah, but this is the same in the Philippines. We always like to talk. We are always eager to learn about the other. So with this, I encourage you to forge friendships across schools and promote knowledge and culture with students around the world. I encourage you to visit the Philippines, where you will, remember this now, love the Philippines. That's our tourism motto. So tourism slogan, love the Philippines, very simple, 3 words. In case you miss it, there's a 30-day visa-free policy for Kenyans. So I hope that I was able to shed light on the significant role of cultural diplomacy in forging connections and establishing a foundation of trust that allows nations to collaborate to strive for a better world. So maraming salamat. That's Filipino for thank you. Asanteni sana. Mabuhay.
I think for everything that we had there, it's a free visa for Kenyans, right? and so many interesting things about cultural diplomacy, especially paving way for conflict resolution and more emphasis on intercultural integration. Now to our next speaker, again, we are honored to have with us Head of Missions, Embassy of Brazil, Adriana Teles Ribeiro. She is the Deputy Head of Missions at the Embassy of Brazil in Nairobi and has been in Kenya for 1.5 years in this capacity. A career diplomat since 2006, Adriana has served most recently at the Brazilian mission to the United Nations in New York from 2012 to 2016, where she worked as a humanitarian cooperation focal point, as head of Cooperation and Consular Affairs at the Embassy of Brazil in Addis Ababa from 2016 to 2019. And at the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Office of Representation in Sao Paulo between 2019 and 2023. She holds a master's in public policy from SOAS. For those of us who don't know, this is the School of Oriental and African Studies in the University of London. And she has an undergraduate degree in social sciences from the New School for Social Research in New York. In her spare time, Adriana enjoys reading books, working as a volunteer and activist for causes she's passionate about, and spending time with her daughter Ellis, who was born in 2020. Thank you very much, and we are happy to have you here. Please let us welcome her as she comes to give us her remarks.
Habari asubuhi. Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I want to thank the Dean of Arts and Social Sciences of Daystar, Dr. Patrick Muzembe, for the invitation, and also salute all my colleagues, all protocol observed. I'm very grateful actually for the opportunity because there's nothing, to be honest, that I enjoy more than escaping the confines of our embassy in Runda and being among young people, you who are the future of Kenya and of the world. On our topic today, it is often said that culture is the window to the soul of a nation. And for many, many years, culture, let's be honest, it wasn't taken as seriously. It was sort of seen as what an American scholar called the sunny side of international relations, or the sort of cherry on the cake. So that idea is that, mostly men, because it was for centuries, diplomacy was mostly a male activity, that's also changing, would be sitting and talking about serious things, and maybe as the dessert was served, there would be some sort of traditional dance. So culture was sort of relegated to that role. However, many countries, they saw long ago the strategic side of cultural diplomacy. For example, the British Council was established in 1934. The French also created the Alliance Française, the Germans, the Goethe Institute, the Chinese, the Confucius Institute, Japan, the Japan Foundation. These countries, they were sort of pioneers in understanding the strategic role of culture. And when I say strategic, I'm going to speak briefly about 3 aspects, okay, of cultural diplomacy, because it's a topic that actually we could go into in much more detail. But the first aspect I'd like to speak about is cultural diplomacy and peace. So the idea ultimately of diplomacy is peace. And if we are at war, if any country is at war with another country, it means diplomacy, sadly, is failing us. And what role does culture have to play in that context? Well, culture shows us the common humanity amongst all of us, right? For example, I'm a mother, and I feel that my love for my child is universal. I recognize it in women all over the world as they love their children. Whether or not they feed them ugali in the morning or eggs and bacon, it doesn't matter where your culture, your habits, your gastronomy, there are certain aspects of our humanity which is universal. And every time countries are at war, our diplomacy has failed us in that we are considering another people inferior to us somehow, right? So how can cultural diplomacy play a role? Well, if we see cinema from other countries, if we see music and food, if those countries are familiar to us, our people will be less accepting of a war against those countries because we won't see those people as others or as inferior. We will see first the common humanity. So this is an important aspect of cultural diplomacy for peace, which is the ultimate aim of the United Nations and of diplomacy itself. I'd like to give an example of the West Eastern Divan Orchestra. It's an orchestra based in Spain, and it's composed carefully chosen musicians from countries of the Middle East which are currently at war. But their purpose in this orchestra is to travel the world, showing that despite their countries being at war, they, as musicians, wish for peace, and they are an act of peace themselves as they sit and play beautiful symphonies. They are demonstrating that culture can be above war, that culture can be an instrument for peace and dialogue. If our books, another example of cultural diplomacy, if our school books, the state-sponsored school books, if they teach us from a young age about the equality of humanity, we will grow up with that vision. If, however, our school books teach us from a young age that another country is inferior, that another people are inferior to us, we will grow up as a people more likely to accept war. So these are a few examples of cultural diplomacy as an instrument for peace. The second point I want to make is culture and diplomacy and cultural diversity. Now, this is really an important aspect to Brazil, because I'm not sure you know that Brazil is the country with the largest African population outside of Africa. Did you know that? Many people don't know that. And it's really interesting to us because, like Kenya, we were also colonized. We were colonized by the Portuguese. And when they arrived in our country, they believed that their culture was superior to ours. So it's been a long process where we learned and we decided to embrace our mix of Portuguese culture, African culture, indigenous culture, and be really proud about that, to be proud of that. And cultural diversity is important. I'll give another example. I once went to a museum in Geneva. It's called Museum of Humanity. And I found it very interesting that there were exhibits about all the different peoples in the world, right? Even an exhibit about Brazilians. There I was, my culture represented, and they put maybe, some indigenous exotic clothing, and they put maybe the samba and the carnival. But then I looked around the museum, I said, this is very interesting. It's a museum about humanity. Where is the section about the Swiss themselves, right? I mean, if they're going to build a museum about all of humanity, where's the section that shows that the Swiss, for example, love cheese fondue and they love chocolates? You see, sometimes when we look at the world, we are almost taking for granted our culture as the basis or the norm, and then we see others as exotic. But actually, to Brazilians, the Swiss are exotic, you see? So it's really an interesting thing about cultural diversity. And in order to protect that, the UNESCO signed the Convention on Cultural Diversity. And that's also really important because it brings me to my third point, which is about cultural diplomacy and economics. If we allow the world's cultural relations to depend only on market relations, we will not be able to protect either cultures that have been threatened by different situations, legacies of colonialism or other aspects, or by the market forces. So let me give an example about cinema. I am sharing the table with a film director. Brazilian cinema, is not one of the most powerful cinemas in the world. If we allow the market forces to dictate the rules of what is shown in our cinemas, hardly any Brazilian films would be shown because they cannot compete with the power of other nations, powerful nations' cinema. So we need to create strategies so that when we have a shopping center, for example, and it has 10 cinemas, there's a law in Brazil that says at least two of them need to be screening Brazilian films. And this is a way to protect our own diversity. Because again, if we allow the rules of the international market to prevail, we will not have space for emerging cinemas. The cinema of Kenyans, for example, which has so much potential. Could I get a glass of water? Sorry, thank you so much. My mouth is really Thank you so much to this film director. So that's really important about protecting cultural diversity. We have to create the economic incentives to protect it so that we can protect emerging manifestations of culture. We see the same with languages. Portuguese, there have been authors in Brazil that are recognized as great authors, but the truth is they never had the same space as, for example, French authors or British authors. Why is that? Because the fact that they write in Portuguese already leaves them sort of on the periphery of the international scene. So when we protect cultural diversity, we're also trying to protect the space for these amazing authors that maybe write in other languages that are not English or that are not French. You see, so there's a lot of interest, economic interest as well, in these protections of the space of cultural diversity. I want to share with you also something about Brazil. I know that I'm nearing the end of this intervention, but I want to share it with you that because of the legacies of colonialism, Brazil and Africa's relations have been quite fragile in the past. We don't know much about each other. I just mentioned that Brazil has the largest population of African descent outside of Africa. Many people perhaps do not know that. We don't have direct flights. We don't know much about each other. When I say I'm from Brazil, what do you think? Football. And when we say, if I tell Brazilians that I'm living in Kenya, what do they think? They think those amazing athletes that always win the marathons, right? They don't know, Brazilians don't know that Kenya created, for example, the M-Pesa 10 years before Brazil had that. They don't think of Kenya as a hub of innovation. You know, they don't think of Kenya as this youthful, creative economy, right? So we don't know each other. We don't have direct flights, very few direct flights connecting our continents, and it's a fragile relationship. So what we've been trying to do in our diplomacy, and this is gaining more and more ground, is to really promote this South-South connection. So in our embassy last year, we organized the Black Brazilian Film Festival. It was a film festival curated in partnership with the Brazilian Black Association of Professionals, Audiovisual Professionals, curating films all produced and directed by young Black Brazilian directors, screened here in Nairobi. And a lot of people came to me, we didn't know this. We didn't know this side of Brazil, this African side of Brazil. So we also need to work as developing countries. We need to work on the spaces that we can occupy and the relations, because traditionally, the way power has been designed in the world through historic situations has let us know very little about each other, right? We don't know much about each other. We don't see each other's films, right? So those are some of the things we are trying to do to break those barriers. And to me, it's actually one of the most exciting kinds of diplomacy there is to be in Africa and to work on this frontier of common heritage, but so little knowledge, you know, that so far. In closing, I would like to quote a very interesting article published by the Primary Secretary of the Kenyan Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Singh Oi, last year in the newspaper Nation. It was called Immense Soft Power Potential in Kenya's Rising Cultural Diplomacy. In this article, Dr. Singh Oi says that culture is a powerful tool for international diplomacy. He considers that Kenya is today a cultural mosaic, given its history as a nation founded on the coming together of many cultural sub-nations, a nation with a rich cultural diversity comprising close to 50 distinct and colorful cultures. As efforts to promote this rich diversity, cultural festivals in Kenya, such as Lamu Cultural Festival, which showcases Swahili culture, Maragoli Cultural Festival, celebrating Lugoli and Maragoli culture in general, and the Turkana Cultural Festival are among the cultural events that have stood up to be counted. Besides the role that they play in the promotion of Kenyan tourism, again, making the link between culture and economics, when we promote our country, we also promote tourism, and that's a source of revenue, right? Besides that role of promoting Kenyan tourism, these festivals can be packaged as effective instruments of cultural diplomacy, bridges between Kenya and the nations of the world, very much in the same way like Brazil's Rio de Janeiro Street Carnival. So we hope to see you in Rio de Janeiro Street Carnival and also in Kenya's amazing festivals, because no other instrument available to us can be perceived as part of the common heritage of humankind. I think Brazilians get very excited about this subject. That's why I get thirsty. Culture, having no frontiers and being such a diversified manifestation of human nature and sometimes human genius, is charged with subjective and symbolic meaning. Although created in a specific country, culture is usually accepted as being to all, and not only to that specific country. And that's because of the ultimate common denominator of humanity, which ties us all together. So I hope that as you graduate, you can work to make your own government more sensitive to the key role that culture can play in promoting peace, in promoting diversity and protecting diversity and respect and dignity, and in promoting as well strategic creative opportunities. Thank you so much.
We We have been sitting for a long time, haven't we? And we have something for you, Daystar University Choir. Daystar University Choir, as they walk in majestically, smiling. They are going to entertain us with a very short piece, and then we'll have the two couple speeches before we go to panel discussions. Kwaya tafadhali, kwa mwendo wa aste aste, kama mnaweza tembea kwa haraka kidogo, tutashukuru sana, asante. As the choir sets on stage, I think one important aspect that we need to recognize is their excellent performance as just concluded music festival. And they came back with so many tokens. I appreciate our choir. And so here, they are here significantly positioned to entertain us and also to bring the culture of Daystar at heart with us. Thank you.
Ushuhuda wake Bwana, ushuhuda wake Bwana. moyo, oh, furahisha moyo, oh, 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 maneno, maneno ya kinywa na mawazo ya moyo yapate kibali mbele yako Bwana. Mwamba wangu, Mwokozi wangu, parara, parara, maneno yake, haleluya, 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 oh, dum, 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 haleluya, 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 oh, dum, 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 maneno ya kinywa na mawazo ya moyo yapate kibali mbele yako Bwana. Mwamba wangu, Mwokozi wangu, maneno ya kinywa changu.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And indeed, the voices are soothing to our souls and the words are refreshing. As the Daystar University Choir leaves the stage, I love their enthusiasm. Please appreciate them as they leave the stage. Thank you very much. And now we invite our next speaker, and we are almost done with the speeches. We have the next speaker is CEO, International Relations Society of Kenya and Regional Coordinator of the East African Tax Governance Network. Leonard Wanyama has varied experiences in development, governance, and international relations in East Africa. Having consulted with the Royal United Services Institute, he has also worked as a magazine columnist for the Nairobi Law Monthly and Nairobi Business Monthly, and as a part-time lecturer of international relations at Technical University of Kenya, TUK, and Riara University, respectively. He started his career as a project officer for the Society for International Development for Eastern Africa in Kenya. Mr. Wanyama has a BA in Social Sciences, Political Science, and Economics from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa in Nairobi, and a BA with honors in Masters of Arts in International Relations from the University of Witwatersrand, Johannesburg. Please let us welcome Mr. Leonard Wanyama to give us that speech.
Good morning, everyone. Or is it afternoon? Might be afternoon. I don't have a watch with me. Thank you so much. It is indeed a great honor to be part of you today. I'd like to also congratulate the choir, but I see they're already heading off to their break. That was quite a wonderful performance. I am here in my capacity as the Chief Executive of the International Relations Society of Kenya. I came to the attention of Daystar when we came looking for partnership with your university in building an umbrella body that will serve a whole load of international relations practitioners in the country. This is an experiment for which I'm thankful. I see Dr. Anyona here with us. In our past history, we have been experimenting with this, and we are still looking at how to implement it. I will start therefore by inviting you all to our annual conference later in the year, that is in November 20th to 22nd. And I will give you the detail of how we get to the conference in terms of what kind of organization we are. When I look at the program, I see I'll be at a panel segment and probably a bit of the cultural aspects of what we see as the international relations will be discussed in that panel. But in this session, I want to introduce you to the International Relations Society of Kenya and speak directly to something very different rather than the sharing of tradition and culture, but mainly building a culture of professional learning and support for each other as people who are working in diplomacy, international relations, and so forth. Most of us, when we start doing international relations, we all have those daydreams where we all think we will be diplomats. There are not enough jobs to be diplomats. But there are jobs out there where your diplomatic skills, where your experiences, where your knowledge will come into play. Now, most people, you find you do the degree, you find yourself in a job, but what took you to that degree stays with you, and you're figuring, what will I do with this? I had a student who went working at a post office and once called me and said, what did I do this international relations course for? What did the diplomatic protocol class you took me to help? And so coming from the position of students, we thought this urge, this problem kind of goes with us all as we live and go along our various stations. And so what started out as, I think, a number of teas at KEPSA offices has grown into a WhatsApp group that's very active. And I will be sharing a link, and through some of your teachers, we'll get a way in which some of you can join. And we have people from a vast, diverse group of Kenyans who are interested in diplomacy and international relations, in projecting the country and understanding what happens in our diplomatic space. So essentially we do about 7 things. 1, we are engaged in a membership drive where those who are inclined for students, they pay 1,000 for registration and another 1,000 for annual membership of good standing, but they get to join the WhatsApp group and interact with us. So this is still something work in progress. Secondly, we are thinking of developing programmatic focus so that when issues are arising, people in different spaces can engage and teach each other. Now, I work as the chief executive on a voluntary basis. My day job, I'm actually a tax advocate or tax activist. And immediately that reaction is happening. I've just said, whenever I say that, people start, where is your KRA badge? I have no relationship to them, although we work, but there is that angle. So for instance, I bring my civil society stripes. I meet Dr. Anyona, my very first interaction, she reminded me, Leonard, are you the people who took us to court? So there is those kinds of relationships. Now, as international relations colleagues, we then develop a space where we can interact, explain to each other why, for instance, I am taking government to court and why they're implementing policies as they are. That way we inform each other. It's not antagonism through and through, because that was what has been happening in our spaces. When you have an issue, as one aspect, if you're in civil society, you're fighting with government or things like that. You're in business, you're in competition with faith-based groups in terms of delivery of corporate social responsibility. But as people who study together a similar subject, we have a way of now thinking and interacting so differently to inform each other and build a new Kenya, especially in this new dispensation. Outreach initiatives, this is one of them. We've had one with the Catholic University of East Africa, where they had a career fair. Today, it is you who have invited me here to share some of my thinking. Media engagements. For those who are experts from various fields, for instance, we have people who are media practitioners, people who are in civil society, and as myself, people who are in business, but they don't know how to go about the real process of getting yourself into a platform, a TV, and so forth. You might have noticed that it's been written in my profile that I was a columnist. I got that because someone in the society thought I could write well and put me and introduced me to people who said, why don't you write for us on development so that we get to understand? So placement of people in terms of how we have different skill sets is part of what we do. Career development, this is a work in progress because we need to think of how to add skills to our members and so forth. And then opportunities for networking. Thank you. Sorry. And opportunities for networking. Welcome, Mheshimiwa. Opportunities for networking so that we know who's placed where, who's doing what, and what are your interests. And then lastly, as I'd alluded to, is the question of government engagement. You might have realized that once the Constitution came into effect, the question of how do we engage government in various aspects has arisen. One of them is foreign policy. And there's an ongoing debate in terms of how different stakeholders can engage foreign policy spaces in Kenya. So that's something we are looking to contribute to and engage better going forward. Now, why are we doing this? So that we can understand foreign policy better. We can build communities of practice. Daystar and other universities are developing a resource. I remember the time when international relations maybe had only one school or so, but now over a period of 20 years and beyond, we have so many people who have studied international relations, but where are the communities of practice? How are they learning from each other? So probably through development of working groups, when we come together, we will figure that out better. And lastly, influencing and informing. So to give you some examples, I had mentioned that I come from an NGO space where I teach, talk, tax, and I don't do this as the KRA or government does it, because I go into communities, I engage parliament. It's more kind of social impact as opposed to research and knowledge driven. So when you are, for instance, in the International Relations Society of Kenya, and you're provided the opportunity to speak either officially or unofficially to communities of practice, to people like parliamentarians and so forth, then you begin to implement change. So on every debate that there is, for instance, when we talk of tax, there are the international tax dimensions, which are, those are foreign policy conversations, and so forth. When we talk of humanitarianism, when we talk of peace missions, all that are an opportunity for Kenyans to take part and influence and inform. So understanding the spaces is very important. Navigating the context. Today, everywhere you go, the number one question is, how will we involve the youth better? How are we going to engage on the Gen Z better? What are the Gen Z issues? For a while, we had been speaking about this as civil society, but maybe because of different practice, different tradition, we couldn't kind of cross over the messaging until the events of earlier this year. Those events have are going to have ramifications for the next 15 years, in my opinion. But then how do we then channel it into policy? Who do we need to get them into the right positions to understand and implement and think about this better? Who do we need to inform? And so in creating the International Relations Society of Kenya, that is the grand ambition of the organization that we are trying to establish. There are many things when you think of international relations. Globally, if you just start by regions, you can't stop. I think over the past few days, you've seen events in the Middle East. There are so many things. In Kenya here, I'm betting there'll be something. We have a 24-hour to 2 weeks news cycle where things happen so fast. And you find yourselves coming from one event to the other. And all these have various dimensions which we need to engage. But we can't do it as one organization, we can't do it as one person, and so forth. And so IRSK is seeking to develop that space for all. I don't want to go into questions of theory, but essentially what you will realize is this is mainly an understanding that there is what we call the realist perspective. It's the state that domineers. And then there's the modernist, where it's the individuals. And so for us, it's just that navigation of those two moving intellectual forces in bringing a better engaging society for all. I think I'd like to stop there because of time, and I believe I'll be sharing a lot more of my anecdotes and thoughts about cultural diplomacy in the panel. But thank you so much. Just to note that the choir actually did something very, very interesting. When we go around, we try and figure out, so what does each university offer differently in terms of diplomacy? And quite frankly, the performance here was wonderful, and I hope I can invite you to do a performance for us at the annual conference in November, because even that song, I can give you stories about it, about the ecumenical movement in the 90s and what that song used to do. So that is kind of a good showcasing that we can do together with Daystar University and their colleagues from the others who will be in attendance come November. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, CEO Wanyama, for those remarks. And thank you for the invitation of the choir on behalf of Daystar University. Please, let's appreciate that. And now I want to take this opportunity to welcome the next speaker. He is Honorable Member of Parliament, Saboti constituency, Honorable Caleb Amisi. Karibu sana Daystar. We are very delighted to have you here. He will be speaking next, and Honorable Amisi is a distinguished entrepreneur and member of the Kenya National Assembly for Saboti constituency, currently serving in his second term. He is a ranking member of the Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee, where he has served for 7 years now. He not only participates in vetting ambassadors, but also makes critical contributions to discussions on crucial treaties, conventions, protocols, and agreements. Honorable Amisi was instrumental in the team that successfully championed enactment of the Foreign Service Act 2021, an act of parliament to provide the establishment, management, administration, accountability, and functioning of a professional foreign service with a unique perspective on governance and public service. Could we all be upstanding as we welcome Honorable Amisi to address us? Thank you very much. Let's all stand up so that we can also stretch, but karibu mheshimiwa.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Was that a standing ovation or you are? I want first of all to start by apologizing to the organizers of the event. I came a bit late. There are so many activities happening in Parliament, including impeachments of various state officers. So definitely there is a lot of activities, and that's why I came late. And sometimes when you come in the afternoon, you find people are a bit tired, and you are also at the risk of repeating what people have said. I assure you I'll not repeat. And I'm also here to represent the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations in Parliament, where I serve as a member for now 7 years. In addition, our Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Masika Wetangula, was to be here with us. And because he is the head of this political theater, he could not get time to be here, but he has sent me his speech that I will gladly read on his behalf. From there, the Master of Ceremony will give me guidance, because I was told I'm supposed to be in a panel for a discussion, something that I enjoy more than giving a speech. So allow me at this juncture to stand here as the Speaker of the National Assembly. Will you allow me? And I represent Honorable Moses Masika Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly of Kenya, who was supposed to be here as the chief guest. And I will do the cardinal duty of a representative and read the speech on behalf of the Speaker. This is the speech by Honorable Moses Masika, the Right Honorable Moses Wetangula, EGH MP, the Speaker of the National Assembly, during the Daystar University Diplomatic Week event happening today at the Daystar University. High Commissioners, Ambassadors present, members of the University Council, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Laban Ayiro, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, University Management, faculty staff, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a good evening. It is a great honor to join you today for the Daystar University Diplomatic Week, an annual event that holds a special place in the university's calendar, an occasion that brings together diplomats, international relations experts, industry professionals, faculty and the students to engage in meaningful dialogue and foster deeper understanding in the fields of diplomacy, international relations, and peace studies. From the onset, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and commend Daystar University for its commitment to cultivate the next generation of global leaders, diplomats, and peacemakers. I recognize the vital role that the Daystar University continues to play in shaping the future of diplomacy and international engagement. Your commitment to academic excellency and the leadership development is commendable, and I deeply appreciate the contributions that Daystar University makes in Kenya and on the global stage. You are truly a beacon of excellency, fostering the next generation of leaders who will guide us towards a more connected and harmonious world. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme for this year's Diplomatic Week, Expanding Horizons, the role of cultural diplomacy in shaping global careers in international relations, directly addresses the opportunities and the challenges presented by our interconnected world. Cultural diplomacy has become an essential tool in our global toolkit. It unites nations, fosters mutual understanding, and lays the groundwork for peaceful coexistence. This event provides a valuable opportunity for interaction between students and key stakeholders, fostering networking and mentorship that emphasizes the pivotal role of the cultural diplomacy in shaping careers. It empowers us to navigate complexities and find common ground, thus enhancing our roles as future leaders in international relations. Ladies and gentlemen, as you embark on this week of learning, networking, and discovery, I encourage each one of you to seize the moment. Participate actively in the workshops, engage with industry experts, and share your ideas and experience with one another. Let us harness the power of cultural diplomacy to expand our horizons, not just for ourselves, but for our communities and the world at large. Together, we can shape a future where dialogue, respect, and collaboration are at the forefront of international relations, driving meaningful change in our societies. As Edward said eloquently stated, no cultural existence in isolation. Cultures are always made by other cultures. This essence is foundational to the practice of international relations. This truth resonates in the very nature of international relations, where cultures intersect, shaping a world that thrives on shared values and diversity. Cultural diplomacy stands at the core of peace building and the mutual respect. It transcends mere political and economic interests to embrace our shared humanity, our diverse ideas, traditions, art, and values. By fostering meaningful exchanges, we nurture unity, promote peace, and open up global opportunities, particularly international relations. Here in Kenya, our rich cultural heritage has been paramount to our diplomatic agenda. Through vibrant music, art, languages, and the values of resilience, hospitality, and a collective effort, Kenya has positioned itself as a key player on the international stage. We have built bridges and expanded our global footprint through cultural diplomacy, contributing positively to various international forums. Cultural diplomacy is more than an extension of foreign policy. It is a powerful tool for building trust, fostering goodwill, and establishing lasting alliances. Your future careers in international relations will be influenced by your ability to embody these values as not only diplomats of your nation, but as ambassadors of shared human ideals. Core values, integrity, excellency, innovation, and the service underscores your mission to deliver leaders who make a difference in the world. To the promising student body of Daystar University, you are uniquely situated at the forefront of a rapidly evolving global landscape. The challenges of our time, climate change, social inequalities, and geopolitical tensions call for innovative approaches to diplomacy infused with empathy, cultural appreciation, and ethical leadership. As representatives of Daystar University, you carry the legacy of our values and mission into the world. You have the unique opportunity to forge partnerships that enhance your professional journeys and contribute to your mutual growth and collaboration. In today's globalized society, the ability to engage with different cultures and perspective is paramount. By embracing cultural diplomacy, you can cultivate relationships that transcend borders, opening doors to new opportunities, and fostering a spirit of understanding and cooperation. As you embark on your professional journeys, keep in mind that you are entering a world that is increasingly interdependent and diverse. Your ability to navigate this complex landscape will essentially emphasize in collaboration and cultural understanding in all your endeavors. May you rise to even greater heights, empowered by knowledge, enriched by cultural understanding, and driven by a desire to make a lasting impact on the global stage. Thank you, and that is the speech of the Right Honorable Moses Masika Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly. And I wish not to add anything on that. I wait for my time at the plenary. Thank you very much.
We have heard speeches, have heard inspirations and very beautiful insights throughout the day today. And our last speaker today is somebody that brings culture and media in collaboration. So let us welcome our last speaker is Mr. Bob Nyancha. He's the Director of Cinematic Solutions. He is an accomplished all-round versatile film professional with a proven ability to create, develop, shoot, and produce the full gamut of film and television productions. He has created, self-financed, and produced 2 award-winning local features and directed 2 others with local producers. He has the full academic training and credentials in the film business and has, through 25 years experience, worked on several different genres of film and television production, from management level all the way to director-producer positions. He has successfully managed a production house of 23 years. He has also made films for local corporate organizations like Unilever the Coca-Cola Company, Procter & Gamble, and Safaricom, amongst others. He has also, of course, worked for Comic Relief, UNICEF, and Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. For the BBC, ITV, China Global Television, RRD, Germany, and many others. The production house has also serviced several international film and television productions. In leadership, Mr. Nyancha has served as a chairman of the Kenya Film and Television Professional Association for 4 years, served in the government task force that led to the setting up of the Kenya Film Commission, served as a trustee of the Kenya International Film Festival for 6 years. His contribution to the arts earned him the Presidential Award of Order of the Grand Warrior of Kenya. Bob is widely traveled within the African continent and has filmed in 17 countries across the continent. Karibu sana, and we are delighted to have our very own as a welcoming you to speak to us, because Daystar is the heart of communication.
Wow. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Kwani mnasikia njaa sana? Eh? Mtadish, ndio? I hope there's food. Is there food, Doctor? So after this. I don't know anything about protocols, those things that people say before they make a speech. I have no clue. All I know is that everyone who is here is very respectable, and we appreciate you and we honor you. And thank you so much, Daystar University, for inviting me to share some of my thoughts on this topic today. And I just want to share a few ideas of my experiences and my journey in the film business. When I got the invitation to come for this event about a couple of weeks ago, I thought the guy who was inviting me was from a shisha house or something, because I could not immediately see the connection where a filmmaker and a diplomatic forum were meshing together. But because this is academia, there's always opportunities. So I had to feel for myself. Yani, in translation in Swahili, I'm saying nikajijazia. Yeah, nikajijazia, feel for myself the opportunities and the connections between film and diplomacy and culture. So actually, as a filmmaker, I realized that you have the deepest and the most connection with international communities, especially if you're working across one of the managing the managing editor of China Global Television. They used to be called CCTV then. And one of the propositions that they sold us is that they have observed that in Western media, Africa is not represented positively. That when you watch leading Western media, the story and the image of Africa obviously has always been of poverty, hunger, famine, wars, and all that. And what this managing editor told me is that we want to change, as China, we want to change the image of Africa. We want to convert. We travel to showcase African history and culture in all kind of shapes and sizes, and it was just an amazing journey to see a different side of Africa. And for me, when I thought about that, when I got this invitation, I said, why would a world superpower
invest so much money to project Africa in a different way. Obviously, they have an agenda. They want to show that they are our friends. They are looking after our interests. They want to project us in the best way possible and to do something really different. And for me, this is the power. This is really the power of cultural diplomacy. The fact that somebody would say, and for over that time, obviously we're getting feedback. There are many people, especially within China itself, that for the first time, their first introduction to Africa was to see somebody inventing something. Their first vision of Africa was to see an amazing, colorful, beautiful, historical, cultural event taking place in Africa. And my hope is that the impact of those television series, by the way, you can find them on YouTube. They're there, Faces of Africa, that I did there. I'll share them in a minute, some of the titles there. But that kind of investment tells you that the opportunity and the premium that we put culture has to change. And this is really a huge investment. That time I was not yet qualified enough to work as a director. Obviously, it was a story that I could not even direct if I wanted to. But the German culture is a culture of precision. It's a culture of intense scrutiny on what you do at every moment. And I got a little bit frustrated with that. And I remember one of the mornings we had been working from 4 a.m. I'd gotten up at 4 a.m. to prepare, to set up, so that when the film crew arrived on the set at about 7, they would be ready. So I'd set up everything was running well, and then this boss walked over to me and thought I was just slacking off after the shoot. The sun had come up, and because it was very cold, we were shooting in Nanyuki, somewhere close to Mount Kenya. And the sun had come up, and I decided to take just 5 minutes to warm myself up a bit. And this guy walked over to me with his girlfriend and told me, "Bob, what are you doing just standing around? You should be working, you should be doing something." Remember, I'd been up from 4 o'clock in the morning. But within the German culture, you see, you're supposed to be busy all the time. And even when you're not busy, you're supposed to look busy. Nobody had given me that memo. So I got very angry and was really, really about to explode. And to tell him off and to basically tell him, by the way, I can walk away from this job and go find another job. One of the things that we need to learn, one of the things that you need to learn when we are working with people from other cultures, especially you guys who are getting into the career, is patience. Try to understand the other culture. Give yourself time to connect and understand the other culture. The second lesson that I learned was from a film. I'll share 3 because I understand that I have just about 5 more minutes to go. So I'll give you another lesson from my experience filming in Ethiopia. This is we were filming in Tigray, the northern side of Ethiopia. When we arrived in the country, I actually wanted to go to the western side of Ethiopia because that's where the old churches and whatever. We're doing a story about the Ark of the Covenant, and I wanted to go to a different location. But my host, my fixer, the person who was helping us to do the organizing there, insisted that we must go to a different direction. We have to go north, and we need to go in Tigray. After a very big haggle, I gave in and I accepted to go north. And it was the most beautiful experience that I'd ever had, because we got a priest who allowed us to get into the inside the rock hewn churches, and he walked with us, he stayed with us. On the western side, there are so many tourists and other people that go to these places. So what is my lesson on this? As you work and as you get into your careers, listen to the locals. Give time to understand what the locals tell you. They have better knowledge on the ground, so give them a chance. The final lesson that I can share with you was about a film that I was doing in Ghana. I was working, I'd been tasked with a job of making a story on the late Kofi Annan. And I'd already been to Ghana about 2 times before. And every time, the first time I was there, I was not happy with the guy who was fixing for us. So on the second journey that I went, I met a taxi driver. One of the most unusual characters that you ever seen, and the most intelligent individuals that you'll ever meet. And normally you would say, this is just an Uber guy, man. What does he know? What can he do? But when I introduced this idea to him about doing this film, this guy had connections with everybody in Ghana. He took me to the family of Kofi Annan. He took me to the to connect with the assistant to the former president John Kufuor, and he took me to every other corner of the society that I needed to, and he was so skilled in people relations that he was able to get us through in all the situations for us to get the opportunities. Peter is now a full-time filmmaker, because after that I convinced him and I told him, you're in the wrong job, my friend. You shouldn't be driving Ubers. But what am I saying? As you get into your careers as diplomats and career relationship experts, do not overlook anyone. You never know the diamond that is in different people. Listen to that driver, talk to people. I think life happens in between big events. So take your time to connect with people and you will be very successful. Thank you very much for giving me your time. It's been an honor to speak to you this afternoon.
I want to really appreciate that you have been resilient and you've stayed with us through. Now we are coming to the final tail end of our program today. We have 2 panel discussions that have been planned. So we are going to go in the first panel discussion very quickly, and we are going to do it under 20 or 20 minutes. And so please, moderator, I want to invite my co-moderator for this session, Barnabas Owuor. As Barnabas come, I also want to invite the panelists. The first one is Honorable Caleb Amisi, and then we have Her Excellency Ambassador Mary Charlotte on this panel. Also, we have Dr. Rosemary Anyona and Mr. Davis Makori. As I invite my co-moderator on this panel, I also want just to remind you that I've been your moderator, Dr. Lydia Radoli from the School of Communication, Daystar University.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon once again. I know it's lunchtime, but we should also have food for thought. I've been told that our time or our session has been cut to 20 minutes, so it's going to be a marathon. But to just introduce the session, I'll say that we are living in unprecedented times with so many challenges politically. Also, we are living in times where globalization has gotten to the highest that we can experience, and at the same time we are experiencing tensions across the world. And I think it is during this period that diplomacy plays a very, very important role. And within that diplomacy, which is a tool of foreign policy, it's embedded with our culture, and culture shapes our diplomatic practice. So this conversation is going to bring that aspect, and I'll stick to the theme. Also, I'll be able to introduce my panelists. I'll start with Her Excellency, Madame Charlotte, Ambassador for Philippines, the Republic of Philippines. We also have Honorable Caleb Amisi from the Defense Committee and International Relations of Kenya Parliament. I didn't put it all in words, but that's it. We also have Dr. Rosemary Anyona, who's the Acting Director for Cultural Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we have Davis Makori, who I can also say that we played rugby before. And I'll also recognize the audience, especially we are in an institution that produces knowledge, not only disseminates, but produces. So I'll recognize the faculty, recognize our students, and also from the high school sector, which is also important. And I think that's the reason that we are here, where professionals will share their experience all together. So to start off, maybe I'll just go straight to our first question to start off our panel discussion, that we are living in a very increasingly globalized world, and how can cultural diplomacy be leveraged to foster stronger international relations? And I think I can direct that to Her Excellency, Madame Charlotte. So how has cultural practices enhanced your collaboration, not only in Kenya, but across Africa? Because I understand you are accredited to several countries.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. As I expounded earlier in my remarks, culture plays a very big role in building understanding, tolerance, and a connection between countries. So for the Philippines in Kenya, we signed a memorandum of cultural agreement under cultural cooperation last year. So and then we in the embassy, we make it a point to talk to the youth, because we see the youth as very important in for the future, because when we work, we're not just working for now, we're working for the future. So we make it a point to engage the youth, and that's the reason we're here at Daystar University. And sports diplomacy is also quite important. Last year, the Philippines hosted the FIBA Basketball World Cup. One of the countries under our jurisdiction was South Sudan. They sent a very strong team to the Philippines. So even if they lost, it was their first time to join a FIBA, and then even the South Sudanese team beat us. But the Filipinos started to root for this underdog in that big event. So this is how you build connections across cultures through small things. Cultural diplomacy, you cannot just say, you do this thing now, you get a result tomorrow. No, you build it across time, across the whole society. It's multi-layered, multifaceted, multi-dimensional, and across all media or agencies. So you have to also go through the social media, talk directly to the public, introduce your policies, explain, and if they don't understand, explain it well. Don't lie, tell the truth, acknowledge your faults, build understanding. You're trying to help each other make a connection. So that's what the embassy does as well. And we don't do this ourselves, as I said earlier. We have the help of our diaspora and other sectors, including students, academics, parliamentarians. It's everybody. So cultural diplomacy does not belong to the embassy alone, as we.
Her Excellency, the representative of Brazil to Kenya, was speaking about Kenya and athleticism. And I'll ask, are there ways in which Kenya is really fostering the aspect of our culture, not only being stronger locally, but being an influence in the global diplomatic and multilateral place?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Cultural diplomacy, like we have said, is a question of trying to win the hearts and minds of our people. It is about perceptions, it's about image, it's about bridging gaps in culture. And this, as you bridge the gaps in such. So for us as a country, cultural diplomacy is really, really right at the heart of some of our diplomatic techniques. It is important for us to be seen and perceived and heard and in a certain way internationally. For instance, we are proud of the sports, especially the athletes, athletics, and the image that we have as a country that is doing very well in athletics and all that. But like we are saying, something wrong with the. Okay, so as we are saying, the whole idea is for this perception to be converted to dividends. It is not just to be somebody to say you are a good athlete. It's not going to help you. What is going to help you is how do you convert this perception, this positive image, this prestige into certain dividends, be they economic or whatever it is you are looking for. So as a country, that is what we are doing. We are trying now to look at what we can gain from our fame, from our prestige, from our artifacts, from our music, from our literary works, from is it our cuisine? That's what we are trying to do as a country, to convert this into jobs for the young people, for example, to convert it into opportunities for investments in the creative sector. These are this is the bigger picture for us as a country. So for the young people here today, in fact, the message was that creative industries, cultural industries, they're getting, it's a big market now in the world, big market, and a big opportunity for our people now. So what our country is doing is deliberately setting policies, deliberately finding techniques to go out there and market what we call our talents, our skill, this creative industry. The good thing about creative industry, and I'll go back to this, is that this one, everyone can partake. It is not, pot-bellied men in suits that are doing this. No, it is everybody. You can partake. It is not old women in suits partaking. It's everyone who can be able to do this. And the youth resonate very well with talent, with skills. And the good thing is with the digital era now, there is no more boundaries. Our culture is easy to understand and even manage a misperception quite quickly. So I'm seeing this as a big opportunity for us to think beyond perceptions, beyond entertaining, but also how to make this work for our country in terms of job creation, in terms of tourist numbers, in terms of trade, and all those kinds of things. I don't know whether I answered the question.
Yeah. You've answered. I think you captured everything, and this will take me to Honorable Amisi on the same, because we understand that now you're the policy makers. As students, when you're in the university and we talk about policy makers, it's the Honorable who's sitting in the Committee of Defense and also International Relations and Foreign Affairs, who try to push, not only push, shape, but also create policies that are important for shaping the Kenyan diplomatic sphere. So my question can capture, I think, the military aspect and also the foreign affairs aspect, where we understand that our military is professional and it's recognized across the world as that. And at the same time, they have also been involved in missions abroad. They've been deployed abroad, either for peacekeeping and other activities. Maybe can we ask, are there policies or are there ways in which you're trying to make sure that in the activities of the military and at the same time the activities of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there's a way in which our culture is put out there and there's a way in which our culture is trying to shape the international perception about Kenya?
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope everyone here is a student of international relations. Are all students of international relations? Yeah? Or you are doing agriculture? It's still a good subject. So I just want to guess if you are all students of international relations. Can I start by asking a question? Just to know we are students of international relations. Yeah? I'll give 5,000 to the one who gets right. Can I ask? Now, if you are a student of international relations, in ancient time, we had the religious wars that lasted for almost 30 years. What treaty was signed to stop the religious wars and which year? Yeah? I can see, yes. Another one?
He said the Westphalian Treaty.
Yes, I heard you, but you didn't hear my question. I asked which treaty and which year. You only answered part of it, so you are wrong. Which year? 1648. And then you are students of international relations. You will get your 5,000. Now, I saw the room is quiet, so I had to start there. Now, I'm not very sure if military goes with culture, because military diplomacy is another angle of diplomacy we look at. Culture is another one. Now, you're asking how we can intertwine the two. Of course, diplomacy as a field has history. They say it's the second oldest profession. I don't know which is the oldest one, but diplomacy is the second oldest profession in the history of mankind. So when did the cultural diplomacy start? And when now did the military diplomacy start? At the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations, this is a committee that oversights the Ministry of Defense in terms of budgeting for them, looking at their policies and aligning them to the national goal. And of course, also ratification of treaties and agreements that Kenya enters into with other bilateral partners. And culturally, of course, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we also oversight the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Cultural diplomacy is one of the pillars of the Kenyan foreign policy. So at that level, as a committee, we also engage in legislation. There are many treaties, protocols that have come before us as a committee, where we enhance the work of the ministry by looking at their work, aligning them to the wishes of Kenyans, because we are people's representatives, and also counter-checking if they really are for the good of the country. And of course, we have several engagements with international organizations, UNESCO being one of them. Members of Parliament have several engagements with international organizations that are linked to cultural, the promotion of culture. Those who have come across the African Charter, Kenyan parliament interacts with the other parliaments across the globe. Pan-African Parliament being one of them, the African Union. You look at the African Union Charter, the Cultural Renaissance Act, and the Constitutive Act of the African Union, you'll find the culture aspect has been very, very pronounced. So Africa as a continent has appreciated culture as one of the soft power we use. Culture is soft power. Trying to convince somebody to do what otherwise could not have done, but in a soft way. Now, when you bring in the aspect of military, now that's hard power. So that's why I say military is better looked as military diplomacy, and the culture as distinct because it's a form of soft power, while military is hard power. So, of course, they say the world is anarchical. And Alexander Wayne says the anarchy is what the states make of it. So it's how the states interact with the international community. What are their policies, their foreign, how they have designed their foreign policy. Kenya, of course, has taken a neutral approach to how it interacts with the international community. Even as much as we are an East African hegemony, we do not bulldoze in trying to convince our partner states to do what they will not have otherwise done. We use culture as one of the means of interaction. Kenya is rich in culture. That is more or less an obvious statement. We are one of those countries that are recognized even at the UNESCO. Those of us here who are Luyas have very good news for you, that ugali is one of those delicacies that are recognized at UNESCO. So you should declare for yourself as Luyas. And many others. That's just an example. Maasai culture is the richest wherever you go. So our culture is deep. We don't need to go into the nitty-gritties. And this is an area that we, as members of parliament, we emphasize when we are doing our legislation, our policies, our design of foreign policy relations. And when we travel and meet our counterpart, we do a lot of mission travel. Myself, I've been to more countries than my years I've been in this world. So we've interacted with other jurisdictions, parliaments across international interparliamentary union. Interparliamentary union is Kenya's parliaments have higher participation in international union and the Pan-African Parliament, like I said. Other parliaments, of course, the European Union and the parliaments of the Arab League exchange our cultures at that level of members of parliament. And many, many others. All the legislation that come to us on culture, we are at the committee that oversight. And that topic is huge. I don't think I can exhaust it in these few minutes, so I hope to stop there unless there is a question.
Thank you. I think you've covered it well, and I think it's also a good time to also compare, because in Philippines they have more than 100 languages, and in Kenya we have more than 60, yeah? And I think we still are challenged by the effort to even come up with a national dress, but that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, my next question will be directed to Mr. Makori, where I think Honorable here has really brought up the aspect of history, and we understand how history has been shaped by cultures throughout so many years. And in your research of conflict transformation, advocacy campaigns, how do you think culture has shaped how societies move away from conflicts and getting transformed completely, because you've been able to be placed in different multicultural setups, especially in the conflict period?
Thank you very much, and thank you to Daystar for this invitation. It's an honor to be here, and it's also good to meet you without a referee standing between us. As maybe I'll lead off with what Mheshimiwa just mentioned, and it's a common saying in peace and conflict research. that warfare is simply the continuation of diplomacy by other means. But the role cultural diplomacy plays in fostering peace, I think the ultimate goal of cultural diplomacy is to create peaceful coexistence between societies and to act as an enabler of societies, as has been mentioned in the previous speeches, to be able to see each other positively, to have positive sentiment to each other, to reduce the likelihood of aggression or even the incitement to violence against societies. And in the field of international development or humanitarian relief, for example, we are seeing a rapidly shifting landscape where while the actors still remain the same, there are few realities that are emerging. As the world globalizes, local communities are becoming more important in the design and development of interventions and programs. And even recently, at the recently concluded UN General Assembly, the Summit of the Future was signed, a package of very ambitious transformations that the global system should see in developing, in achieving peace, security, and development. What role can cultural diplomacy play? I think there's numerous, but I can touch on a few. In peace and conflict resolution, for example, cultural diplomacy plays a central part in a lot of interventions that seek to bring communities together. I can cite numerous examples of art-based dialogue programs, of peace-building programs that use sports, music, and arts to bring communities together, and not just within countries, but also across borders. Cultural diplomatic ambassadors, such as sportsmen and musicians, have also been profiled extensively as champions of peace, as champions of reconciliation, as bridges that build connections between societies. And you can literally follow that example in numerous contexts, both in the global north and the global south. And I think maybe to conclude, cultural diplomacy is also reshaping narratives around how peace is achieved and the role different communities have regardless of their status. Many Kenyans, for example, will acknowledge that some of our best cultural diplomatic ambassadors have been used abroad. If you think of Eliud Kipchoge, if you think of Tekle Lerupe, if you think of our sportsmen and environmental conservationists, if you think of the role, for example, our local communities and champions are playing in biodiversity and ecotourism abroad and realizing some of these solutions, you'll notice that there's a common thread of cultural diplomats or cultural ambassadors, essentially, increasingly taking center stage, increasingly linking the local and the international. And I think by that merit alone, they complement the efforts of public diplomacy very well.
Thank you, thank you. I think that's so candid and it covers a lot, especially when you mentioned the field of conflict transformation through sports and different cultures. My next round of questions, I think before we finish off and open the floor for questions, I'll direct it again to Her Excellency Ambassador. And I think we felt not only the surge of youth, but the power, especially even here locally. And that's an important consideration that we can look into. And you've also mentioned the power that social media has played, especially in your country, in terms of diplomatic practice. How do you think social media can be leveraged to not only be an opportunity for growth of diplomatic practice, but also at the same time to remove certain dangers that comes with it, which is disinformation, misinformation, and polarization of general diplomatic field?
Okay, thank you for the question. Social media has removed the distance between, for example, the diplomat and the public. You can converse directly to like somebody from the youth who would ask a question through social media. So it has extended the avenues by which you can reach out to your target audience. In the same way, as I pointed out, it has some dangers. So what you have to do for government is to counter misinformation. For one tweet, you post, if it's a very controversial subject, you'll have to deal with 1,000 retorts. But as long as you give the correct, the right information, don't fudge, explain properly, it's easier said than done. Because when I notice, for example, when your president is speaking and you see the comments going on the other side, it's all comments going up, and then you have to navigate your way through all those comments and then find something like a thread to make a connection with the audience so that they will understand your point of view. You have to persuade. So that's the part. That's what cultural diplomacy is also about, which is, as you said, linked to public diplomacy. You have to make policy understood to the public you serve. So you have to make the connection. Sometimes it's easier to fudge, but the public will know. Journalists will know if you fudge. So don't fudge. Give the correct information. Explain why you are doing certain things, and reach out to them. And as the panelists here earlier said, you have to listen. As the director said, you have to listen and don't discount any voice, because they all have a point to say. And the youth, you have to. We always listen to the youth because it's their future. It's we're here for now. They will be here tomorrow. So we always engage the youth. So thank you.
Thank you. And the last round of questions, which I'll direct to you, Dr. Anyona and Honorable Amesi, basically picking up on the youth. Maybe lastly, because I started by saying university produces knowledge, and at the same time it houses some of this youth. Maybe are there means of collaborating with universities and also to bring in the youth, especially where there is an organized setup where information and also policy convincing can happen?
Speaking from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs perspective, the government has done quite a bit to try and bring the youth into what we do. For example, we do have internships. We have, you can have a one-year internship, courtesy of Public Service Commission, but you can also have short-term 3 months internships. I've had some of my interns are actually right now from Daystar University. So that is the avenue where we talk to them, we explain to them what we do, we explain what foreign policy is, we explain to them the opportunities out here and the importance of changing our mindset in terms of employment. Like we have said, cultural diplomacy or creative industries, cultural industries, that is the future. White-collar jobs are not there for everyone, as somebody had already said early on. However, the cultural space does provide opportunities for us to go out and do the same work that others are doing, but you do it at the convenience of your own, the touch of a button, at your own convenience. You can be able to shape the stories like Mr. Nyanja was talking about here. You can be able to narrate stories, change perceptions, change the image of your country, whatever it is you want to do. So for me, I think, and I keep saying again and again, with combination of technology and combination of the emphasis on creative economy and the fact that the world is fast growing towards that direction, then there's really nothing should stop the young people from trying very hard to think beyond the obvious, which is these suits that we are wearing here, and sitting to negotiate about trade, sitting to negotiate about the cooperation agreements and all that. There are other things now that are drawing in the individual, are drawing in civil society, so they are at least breaking down the barrier where we have to deal with the formal side of diplomacy. You have track one. Diplomacy is not it. Conflict transformation, whatever it's the conflict field, we now do not really necessarily have to rely on track one. We have track two, which is really, really, and if you ask me, it's unstoppable. And it will draw you in whether you like it or not, and it will catch up with you if you allow it to catch up with you, and it will make you be a contributor rather than a consumer. So thank you very much.
Right, just closing.
On the same, the idea of youth and the incorporation of youths in cultural diplomacy or just matter of development of a nation is also a huge subject that is also at the center of my interest. Youths are the trustees of posterity. Those are not my words. Those are the words of Benjamin Disraeli, one of the renowned champions of the youths. And of course, Kenya, just like other African countries, are grappling with youth population bulge. They say African is young, is the youngest continent. What do we do with these young people, learned in universities with no opportunities, whether it's from the cultural angle or from wherever, but there is a population that needs to be engaged. You've seen the havoc they can cause, the Gen Z. They can turn around things in one day. And they are still out there. I think, in my opinion, all universities must engage students from the first day they enter that university to opportunities out there. There must be a clear program. While you are studying, you are also engaged somewhere, attached either to a ministry, attached to an organization, attached to a county, so that you are learning as well as getting the practical skills that you need out there. The idea of somebody waiting to graduate and start tamaking or going to internship, I think we should go out of there. The world is going very fast. I'll give you an example of a very good program that is in my former school, Starehe Boys Center. We worked during holidays. I personally worked at the Nairobi Hospital. I worked at Immigration Office. I worked at Kenyatta National Hospital. And by the time I was joining the University of Nairobi, my CV was too long. I actually got to be an assistant manager at Standard Chartered Bank in second year of the university, because my CV was too long. So if you leave university with only papers and you start now gaining skills after university, I do not think you are competitive enough in the job market. So it is up to the institutions to have a linkage. Immediately you join university, you are joining university, joining either committee, or you are attached to Committee of Defense. As you do foreign relations, you are also with us at the committee level. So by the time you graduate, you have enough experience coupled by your academics and qualifications. Nobody will stop you from getting a job. So this is my proposal to institutions. If I get to be a president of this country, I will do that. But for now, it's just a proposal. Our biggest mistake is that we've left the youth population, and it's going to eat us for a long time.
Let me just add one thing. I think for a long time, our country, there's this culture of white-collar jobs. This thing is we need to change it. Other people are gaining millions of shillings, recognition, wherever, from talents, from skills, from singing, music, dance, culinary arts. I think it's time for us to know that there's life also. There are advantages we are not taking care of. It is parents to nurture the skills of the talents of their kids. If your child wants to venture into music, we see how to support that. You yourself ask yourself at university level, what is your talent? How can you harness your talent so that we can be able to have, an all-rounded population of youth who are thinking way into the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that was a roller coaster of understanding the whole field of international relations, diplomatic practice. And I don't know if we still have time to open the floor for questions. Where's our main moderator? We have time for questions, yeah? Do we? Okay. I've been told just 2 questions. So, yeah. So 2 questions directed to our panelists before we close.
distinguished guests, Daystar fraternity, my fellow colleagues, Jumbo. Jumbo, come on guys, let's be a little bit active. So let me humor you guys, unlike them. I don't have a crazy background. You see, when they're introduced to the stage, we hear academic milestones, diplomatic milestones, but some of us are just students, so we're starting out. So my name is Bo Bedi, a student of International Relations and Security Studies. So 2 questions, and my first question goes out to Her Excellency. Given the fact that you, in this sphere, the sphere of multinational organizations, that's the UN, and also I'm assuming that the Philippines is an active member of Association of the Southeast and Asian nations. Some of us are looking to build our portfolio, some of us are looking to have a background. So what key advices would you offer to students aspiring to work in multilateral organizations, this is such as the UN, and where do we see cultural diplomacy being crucial in fostering collaboration and advancing diplomatic objectives?
Okay, thank you, Bo. Thank you very much for the question. For multilateral organizations, very practically, if you want experience, you can volunteer. They have volunteer programs. But in the multilateral scene, you don't have to be exactly in the United Nations. You can also volunteer for NGOs. Because the UN engages very actively with civil society and the youth. So whenever we have meetings, it's not only member states who speak. At the end, you have civil society speaking on what is close to their field. Like, for example, you have representatives of youth. If it's a plastics treaties, you have waste speakers. You know, all this. So if a UN agency would offer apprenticeships or internships, you can apply and learn on the job. It's very useful because in my experience, whatever you learn in school, it's just theory. You have to do it in practice. Learning on the job bit by bit is quite, well, it's transformative, and it will give you additional perspective on what else you can do, or you wouldn't know you have these abilities until you're there. Like, and then, I know this. and then you thought everybody knew it, and then it turns out that you're the only one with that specific talent. For cultural diplomacy, I've already expounded on it. Even everybody can do it in their own way. You just have to connect with your culture, your identity, and connect with the other one. And it will have, for foreign policy, it has its ends. As Madam here told us, for Kenya, it has to be to economics and provide youth with a job. So if I may share, this is not your question, but in the Philippines, we also have a very young population. The creative industries account for like 7% of our GDP. We also have a very strong business process outsourcing industry. So these are not the regular behind the desk job, but business processing industry does not mean you answer phone calls. It means, for example, you're good in architecture, you can do all these things at the back room for another country. So this provides jobs. But this is off question. Back to you. Yeah. So for multilateral organizations, please don't hesitate to check the websites, and then don't forget to ask. And it does not mean multilateral that you have to go to United Nations agencies. You can do NGOs, as my friend here knows, because the United Nations does engage all sectors.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope a majority of us have heard. It's about just volunteering. So personally, again, if I may humor you guys, man, I was an actor when I was younger. So I don't know if I might find myself in the Philippines. You know, I also want to contribute to this 7% GDP. Anyways, thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And to our distinguished guest, you're most welcome. My name is Tatiana Rison, and I have a question. With the growing importance of soft power in global relations, how do you foresee the balance between cultural diplomacy and traditional diplomatic efforts evolving in the coming years? How does your embassies and our country, Kenya, adapt to this shifting landscape? Because as we have talked about globalization, we are becoming more interconnected, and yeah, there's definitely gonna be changes. So how do you say that you're gonna adapt to these changes?
I don't know, the question is a bit academic. Maybe I should take it, given that I'm the lecturer here. I don't know, is there a very straight line between soft power and hard power? Have you heard other scholars coming up with smart power? If you are doing soft power, does it mean you can't do hard power? Maybe that's the question for you, Honorable Amis, because sometimes the military itself, as it's engaging in military activities, they do soft power activities, cultural activities, sharing of their relics, sharing their music, whatever. They normally do, there's work that goes on, even as people are in the field fighting, there's cultural diplomacy that keeps diffusing, disseminating between countries or among countries, between allies, among allies, enemies, you know, it continues. However, you're saying where the balance is in future. I think that for me, there's no competition between hard power tools and soft power tools. If anything, soft power tools are complementary. They are complementary. Yes, there's an element of evolution. Our culture has evolved over time. Of course, this is a function of how small the world has become now. So even our music, when you ask yourself about authentic Kenyan music, you realize there are influences here and there from the Arabs, from wherever, depending on how historical we've been, meeting and talking to people and interacting with people. So the balance in future, I don't know whether we can, I think there is really no contest. A country needs to come up with strategies, hard power strategies, deal with them the way they want. However, the cultural elements also very, very important. Look at what you are good in as a country. Look at the cultural elements that you can use to, speak, culture, what culture does it speak to others about you? What is the message you want the rest of the world to know about you? Is it about your your culinary arts? Is it about your music? Is it about your dance? Is it about artifacts, your apparel, your dressing? What is it? What is it the dominant? Is it your sportsmen? Like us, we are very keen on being seen in a certain way when it regards to sports. So what do we need? What is the message you want the rest of the world to get? And when the rest of the world gets this message, then like us, we are saying now, with sports, we want them to get the message, and then now we see how it can seep into jobs, economics, peace, So all these things are together. They work together. There's no thin line between them. But I think my colleagues can take the rest of the question, but I think there's really no thin line. There's no straight line between them. They infuse and work and weave into each other soft power tools to support hard power tools, and vice versa. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you so much. I think we are way past our allocated time, but I'll have to get this right. Thank you so much, Her Excellency, Ambassador Mary Charlotte Tang, Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines, Dr. Rosemary Anyona, Acting Deputy Director General, Cultural Diplomacy Directorate, and we also have Honorable Caleb Amisi, who's a member of the Committee on Defense, International and Foreign Relations in the National Assembly. And we have Davis Makori, who's a policy advocate and also a conflict transformation researcher. Yeah, so thank you so much for your questions, your patience, and I think we'll close the panel discussion at that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for leading us in that excellent panel discussion and our distinguished guests. We have had so many powerful insights from here. Now we have the last panel and I want to beg you only 20 minutes, but as we do that, Ngeria boys, please, could you join us here with one piece that is going to make everyone stand up and dance with the choir. One piece that is going to make everyone stand up and dance, even as the panel prepares to take over. And I'll call the panelists as the choir comes on stage, please, quickly. These are our guests, and they are going to give us one number. And please, where you are, this is a cultural moment. You want to stand up and join them, clap with them, sing with them, and so that we can also rejuvenate. We've been sitting the whole day as we prepare again for the last panel, which will take 15 minutes. The choir, when you are ready, we are ready for you. Thank you. Wow! Round of applause as they leave the stage. Thank you very much. That was very inspiring. Thank you very much, choir. Lupisa, please, can you bring back the chairs on the stage, as now we call the last panel, and we are begging of only 15 minutes. I want to start by the moderator of this panel, Benedict Sogomi, who is the Governor Students Leadership, Governor Nairobi Campus. Then I want to call upon the panelists, Mr. William Mayen, Mr. Nelson Salagano, Mr. Brian Wanyama, Mr. Bob Nyancher, Mr. Leonard Wanyama, and also joining to talk on alumni affairs is our very own Dr. Leah Komen. And I must say that the student leadership board is very important in Daystar University. And so when we started, there was a mention of a partnership. So the partners that have made this event come to reality, please, panelists, have a seat. The International Relations Students Association of Kenya, Daystar Model United Nations, and we have the Daystar University Governors Club that Sogomi here is also acting in leadership. As our panelists take seat, please. As they take seat, please bear with us. Only 15 minutes. He is my communication student here, and I know 15 minutes is 15.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I just saw the MP has left. I wanted to tell him, us in Parliament, we anguka nayo. We don't do this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to help me welcome our panel, and I will give them just 10 seconds to reintroduce themselves and say something interesting about themselves, why they love what they love. We start on my right.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Daystar University community. My name is Bob Nyanja. I'm a filmmaker by profession, and I'm just glad and happy to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think to introduce myself, my name is Leonard Wanyama. I think you've asked something that we love. Yeah, I like cartoons. I think they're an interesting art form. I like, especially in a format called graphic novels. So those are like comic books or big books which have pictures and all that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nelson Salagano, and first of all, I have to admit it's a pleasure to come back here as an alumni of your department. I'm really interested in terms of passion, travel and exploration, but particularly professionally, I'm a civil society practitioner. I'm the executive director and founder of the Rural Urban Social Empowerment Program that basically deals with refugee empowerment and basically organized crime prevention. And it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Wanyama, commonly known as Graf Matwana, founder of Matwana Matatu Culture, and I'm glad to be here. Tumekalishwa sana chini, but thanks for the boys. Manzizo ngoma wanatoa zilikuwa fiti, and for me, I'm into vehicles, because for me it's all about the adrenaline. Yeah, chatuyachi hapo sahi.
Hi, my name is Dr. Leah Komen. I am a senior lecturer in the School of Communication with a focus in development communication where we communicate for transformation. But now I also serve as the head of alumni relations, and I believe alumni have a huge part to play in terms of extending the growth, not just of a department or a school, but posterity going forward?
Thank you. Let's appreciate them. I'm sure you don't want to hear my titles. There are many. But for now, just know I'm Benedict. I'll be moderating this. And we want to have a conversation this afternoon for a few minutes. And one of the things, I'm a student, and when we were coming this morning, the students were like, I want to experience something new, something authentic. I don't want the theoretical point of it, like the political answers, like, do this, have this. Like, we want to glean on your experiences, like combining the knowledge and the experience, like how does cultural diplomacy shape the global careers of individuals in the international relations. And I will pose the first question to Mr. Wanyama. And if you could help us to really understand, how do you see diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, shaping the future of international relations, education, career-wise, especially in Kenya, Africa, and abroad? How does it work for you? How?
Thank you very much. As I had mentioned, I work in civil society, and so we are considered not to be part of the state act. So we are not part of the traditional, let me call it traditional, aspect of diplomacy, because we are always in seminars, in UN forums, but not really part of the main traditional track 1, track 2, track 3. Although in the theory and how we conduct our affairs, we are always in those spaces. I recognize the time and the mood, and people are tired. And for me, as I was seated here, I was just, as I told you, I like cartoons, so I have a problem. I doodle or I just write down things. So to keep alert, I've just been writing cultural diplomacy things in my mind, because if you think of cultural diplomacy, particularly in a massive country with all these things, we are doing two things. We are putting out the image of Kenya out there. And when we put out the image of Kenya, whether as government or as people, the message we are communicating, as had been mentioned, is the question of who are we as a country and what is our potential. And for us, the message, whether it's good messages, bad messages, the underlying message you always see there is the question of Kenya as a resilient country. Now, so that I don't bore you and go into very technical stuff, I'll start drawing from my list here. This year, one of the most interesting cultural diplomacy things I ever saw was the King Charles Matatu. This gentleman will tell us about it. I think he was involved at some point. There is one thing you can't beat now in terms of our cultural diplomacy. This Kenyan beat, it communicates so much. I don't know about time, but I will not, it would be foolhardy to have a cultural diplomacy conversation without mentioning a Daystar alumni, Larry Madowo. He is now essentially not just the voice of Kenya, but is now projecting the African voice. How are we conversing? How are we arguing? How are we quarreling? It is all symbolized by the man, Larry. I've mentioned the Shuka. I would disagree a bit with the honorable, the minister, the MP, on Minister for Saboti. When he says the military has no impact on culture, this year, I think there was an online debate about why were Kenyan policemen dancing on arrival in Haiti. There is some communication that takes place about when our brothers and sisters are landing, they are communicating something about them getting there, and the first thing they do is dance, particularly to a country whom colonialism and all that legacy has kind of, affected us in various ways. So you should stop me because I can keep going. This list is 20 long.
Yes, I was even almost there.
Yeah.
So
Crazy Kena, Anguka Nayo.
Yes.
All that. Those are the questions. When people look at you and they say, are you Kenyan? Or if you go to Uganda and they say, Bakenya or something, it is that dimension that speaks to our potential and resilience.
Thank you. And just bolstering on what you've said about how we showcase ourselves, the way we talk, the way we dress, comes in, Mr. Bob, you've dealt with the cinema industry for a while. And how do you think the media points and portrays and inclines, especially that person who is interested in the art of diplomacy? What's the role of the media in this? How does the cinema help to showcase the culture of a certain place? How does it really have its importance, or is it just we are watching a cinema? It's just a cinema. It's nothing more.
Okay, very briefly, the best example that we all know, obviously, is the world's perception of America, Hollywood, and some of the things that we are not aware of. Some of the characters that have been projected on world cinema all over the world from Hollywood have been very carefully contrived to project a certain image. Captain America and all those other characters, Rambo and the rest of them, were contrived to project power. And the world actually, globally, humanly speaking, we accept this as truths. You see America as all-powerful, very intelligent, super intelligent country. That is the projection they wanted. It is all manufactured and contrived. And it's very hard to separate myth from fiction and from reality. And that is very, very intentional. So as Kenyans and as diplomats, we need to also be deliberate about projecting the Kenyan brand and the Kenyan culture. And this is something that, unfortunately, our successive regimes or governments have never really invested in trying to project the Kenyan image or the Kenyan brand in a positive way. And there is an opportunity there. Right now, the whole world is responding to South Korea in the most amazing way. And why? Because of Squid Games and productions that really capture the imagination of the world. You begin to see South Korea as a technologically savvy community and all, but it's all contrived within the cinema. And the lesson for us is let us work towards creating that image that we know is going to project the Kenyan brand in the most powerful and positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. And from what you've captured, there's a keyword that is just coming out, like branding. How do we brand ourselves? How do we brand our communities? How do we brand our nation? And this brings me to you, Dr. Komen. You work with Alumni Office. Do you believe the Kenyan and the African industry institutions are preparing or equipping, especially the students who are in international relations, to be able to brand themselves? Because they mentioned Larry Madowo, these people. Are institutions doing enough, not just theoretically, but practically, to equip students to venture into cultural diplomacy?
Thank you, thank you. There's really, what do I say? The institution can do everything. A lot of things has got to do with the student or the faculty when they are here and doing life. There's something about you thinking about your tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years going forward. When you talk about the university doing something, I think about the soft power thing that we've been talking about here. Part of the things has to be leadership, and thankfully for Daystar, we emphasize on servant leadership, where you don't have to load it over. When you think about servant leadership, other attributes that would fall under the soft skills come in. The negotiations, the emotional intelligence, and the other couple of things that really come alive when you think about a different kind of leadership. So I would say the institutions could do more in terms of exposing us as ambassadors on just who we are, but from the institutions that we come from. Speaking from the context of alumni, for example, and I'm glad that Nelson is here and others, and I would, by the way, how many alumni from IR are here this morning, this afternoon? When you all graduate from IR, like from here? Okay, Nelson, you're not doing well. There are only 2 of you. This would be one of those things, come back, a reunion kind of. You know, there's a function. It's an open day. We need to go back home. We need to tell the rest what we have found. So part of the things that alumni does is to reconnect with the alumni, bring people back home to their alma mater, but also really activate those relationships, remember their times, but forge new ones. Why do you need new relationships? Like we are saying, we are in a global village. Things are changing. How we went to school our days, walking barefoot was very good. There was nothing embarrassing about it. But today you try walking foot, there's a problem. You can get jiggers. You can all those things that we are told. Things have changed. Yeah. So we need alumni to come and also tell us something that is happening, the trends in the field, so that it can also inform curriculum. When we are training people on things that they can fit in. So that, and who can tell us better than the alumni like Nelson, who's been out, and now can come and tell the other IR students, by the way, there's a manner in which we can change something. So there's something about coming back home. So there's something that the institution can do, but also there's something about you as a student believing that this institution that is my alma mater, that I hold a degree, that when I go out I say this is my alma mater, it should mean something. There used to be a university that I will not say the name, but when that university went down, can you imagine you saying that I'm a graduate of that university when it has gone down? So it's also the value of your degree. By studying with your alma mater, you're saying this degree should survive. When I say I went to XYZ, people can say, oh yeah, we know it for that. So because of time,
thank you, Dr. Com. And you've mentioned about collective responsibility between students, lecturers, the government, and also the alumni. And this will bring in Brian. Brian, in Kenya, the matatu culture is a big thing. Like, if you're not in one of the best matatus with great graffitis, you're not traveling, right? So make it make sense to us that believe matatu culture has no place in international relations. Do you believe that this culture can shape the economy in global affairs?
Yeah, I believe that matatus can really change the face of cultural diplomacy, because first of all, we get to in our creative arts industry, we get to engage because of things like music, food, art, and these are things that really open the gateways for a lot of young people. Like, for example, for me, I studied culinary arts, and I also did graphic design. But according to my time, when I cleared school, there are no such opportunities for me. But it's all about also just being aware of your environment, and also, appreciating the day-to-day things that we just perceive as normal things. And I feel like unajua kuna hii perception, like we always say like tunafikiria kitu yenye ulisomea shule, it's something that lazima ufanye. But at times it's something that you can always add to what you're doing. And also for the industry as the matatu culture, I've been in the matatu industry for the past 14 years. And I'd say that it can really open doors. First of all, as my namesake Wanyama mentioned, you know, even the military plays a part. Because like when we were doing the military job for King Charles, it was all about, they started off, you know, nicely because kila mtu yogopa jeshi. So they start with a party. Then after that, now, you know, you get to talk business and stuff like that. But you feel like kuna venye ile design ya, when you think about art, for most people, unafikiria maybe ule mtu mwenye, you know, mtu uchora paintings kwa barabara, or, you know, just someone doing art science and all. But it's for us to take it to the next level. Because even when you look at what we have in abundance, hapa watu wengi, internet, kila mtu hapa na smartphone, right? So information is everywhere. So just depending with just how you try and, you know, how you try and position anything can work. Because also for me, it took time. As Bob said, you need to be patient. And also you need to listen. For me, it took around 6 years to figure out how I could, you know, monetize things in the industry and also just package myself. Because for us, you know, our main aim is to rebrand and build value for the industry. And through there is where, you know, we also get to have workshops and educate the young people who are getting into this on how they can materialize these things and also use their God-given talents.
Thank you so much. And you just opened a Pandora box that, you know, we are thinking that we cannot use culture to our own benefit. And you just say that, you know what, there's a way we can brand ourselves and just not, is a symbiotic relation. We are selling the good name of our communities, our cultures, and in return, also, we are making a living out of it. And I just love how you said it took you 6 years. So like with this information we are having, somebody can get this information within 1 day, saves you 6 years. How amazing is that, you know? That's so cool. And it brings in, we bring in Nelson. You are at the forefront of change. In what Brian has just said, what advice will you give us international students that we can learn from grassroots movement, that we can foster change? We are coming. The other day we saw the Occupy CBD, Occupy Parliament movement, the Gen Z movement, like, and it died. You know, politically it was killed. Now, in future, what advice, what can we copy from examples of grassroots movements that bared fruit and brought in the social change that people desired?
Okay. First of all, let me just say, most of my intervention is informed by the nature of the work I do. What I do is engage community, particularly with trying to formulate solutions for whatever problems that you kind of, you know, recognize that, you know, they are experiencing. And in this, from where I sit, culture will probably come in two ways. For example, first, what interest are donors pursuing, you know? And two, what is the nexus between culture and the community that you intend to intervene? For example, I may put an example with a community, the Turkana community. And you all know about situations of insecurity, banditry, and most of all, climate change and drought and all these. So as a prospective civil society practitioner, as a student right now, the most important question you should ask yourself is, for example, if there is banditry, you know, what element of culture is that element of organized criminalism taking advantage of? And if I may put an example, among the Turkanas and the Pokots, in their culture, cattle is a symbol of wealth, you know. So every young man, before they marry, they have to amass a huge number of cattle, you know. So traditionally, they've always wrestled each other for purposes of facilitating these social transitions, you know. And however, that being a culture that is African and that is very, very hard to eliminate from them, it becomes an opportunity for criminal actors, specifically organized criminal, you know, actors. And the element of criminalism basically comes in when the issue of financial gain, you know, is evoked, you know. And you start seeing it's evolving from a situation where you are stealing his cattle, you know, for facilitating a social transaction, to a position where you are doing that so that you can sell it to a particular market, whether abroad or here, you know. And you find an emergence of a chain of actors that already emerges. So as a person, as a practitioner, for example, and I'm using myself as an example, my question should be, organized crime is everywhere, you know, but what is the particular problem in a specific community? And what cultural dynamics are being taken advantage for, you know? Because unless you can invoke that, then you cannot give a fresh perspective on all these dynamics that have been there over and over, you know? So I know I haven't talked about, you know, taking advantage of community mobilization and all that. But I felt that is something I should mention, because I know, and I was here, and I know most of people here would have wanted to hear something about that. So my situation will be, right now, as a civil society actor,
yes,
you're always engaging with the international community, especially through the internet and all this, you know. So basically, right now, most of your solutions should be, how am I put it? Should be authentic and original, to base on the problems that you're talking about. For example, the unrests, you know, with the communities here. How can we invoke that is so dear to our community in order to provide reliable, you know, interventions on that?
Thank you so much, Mr. Ness. And I just love how you put it to us, like you have to sit down, ask yourself first, why are you doing it? How are you going to do it? And who are you going to do for it? And it's just giving a new perspective, because a lot of times we go by emotions. We run, somebody that doing this, let's go do this. And then at the end, we just run out. So in 20 seconds each, these 20 seconds each are going to decide if we're going to have lunch today or not. So in 20 seconds, if tables were turned, if you could go back to time and have such a meeting, and you're sitting such as these lovely ladies and gentlemen are sitting, what advice will you give them about in the field of international relations and especially cultural diplomacy in your own fields? Like, I know, Mr. You are in films, in cinema, and all that. So I wanted you to just, in 20 seconds, like, what advice will you give? That one thing that you say, if I knew this, this could have saved me 10, 15 years in 20 seconds. I'll start to use. Yes.
What comes to mind is you just have to stick to it. Stick to it. It's a very 3 words, stick to it. You know, stay focused, keep going. Yeah, don't look back. And once your heart has decided, you'll regret it if you give up. So keep going on.
Thank you.
That's the wrong question. I don't know if that's allowed, but I think your question is wrong.
Correct me, sir.
I think I'd say you have to be disciplined and be diligent. That's something an old man told me very many years ago. For me, I can't say that you can get something that you took 15 years can't be distilled into instant coffee. Enjoy the ride of 15 years, if be of 6 years. And briefly, I'm not a tax expert, but when I got the opportunity to work in tax, I learned. I sit with tax experts who call me a tax expert, and I'm like, are you serious? I was in your class. I was just diligent to learn on the job because I've done various jobs. I've worked at a cyber, I've drawn cartoons, I make videos. As I sit here, there's someone who's doing podcasts for me. I'm able to open up when there's the opportunity, learn, and get, for instance, the purpose I'm trying to transmit. So when it comes, enjoy that ride, right? I've been at political rallies, I've organized community-based groups, I've attended, one of the most interesting things in Turkana is a peace festival called Tobong Lorei.
So
Very
diligence
interesting. Yes.
and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much. That's profound.
I think, from where I sit, I keep on, flashing back. If I was here, what I would want to hear. And now that I can at least, say something about it, I will say, there's no way as, Kenyan, and first of all, let me just say, the program that is rolled out here is very, very competent. And there's nowhere you'll go with a degree from this place and the knowledge and the exposure you get here that you'll feel inadequate. So first of all, that's a plat and it's a resource, for every student, sitting down here. So don't underestimate your ability to deliver out there. But first of all, you gotta be strategic. And your biggest resource here is that you're African, So let that be your resource. You should never allow experts to come, and dominate your own terrain. You should look for solutions because you basically understand them more. And if you do that, a lot of doors are gonna be out there staying open for you. Let me just give an example. Last year, I got a privilege to participate in something called North-South Center Council of Europe, University for Youth Development. And basically, if you look at that, that is basically what we are talking about, culture and diplomacy. And this is the people from Europe looking at how can we impact more the communities or the nations around Europe. And the interest was particularly in the southern countries, including Africa.
Yes.
That culminated to some of our colleagues taking part in trainings across the world that are very, very much inclusive. And the only advantage for that was because of the perspectives and the contribution that are informed by experience and our own culture as a people.
Thank you. So don't underestimate yourself. Believe in your craft. Wow. Yes.
Yeah. So for me, I'd say you need to work smart. As much as you're working hard, still need to work smart. Si ati kila kitu utafanya tu. You need to choose something. Kufa nayo. And then apart from that, also network with people from different, sectors and all. You can get to learn a lot of things just from spending time with someone, ama kitu ka hiyo. And then apart from that, I'd say you also need to take advantage of, like, for example, if you're starting a company, you take advantage of these Swahili names that we have. Like, for example, when you go to register a business, si lazima uite jina kizungu, Get those African names. That's something authentic. And then, just the small things that tunaona ni kawaida are the things that really stand out to most people. Because isn't it like, you see, when for you, like, say you about kutoka hapa when they're South Africa, there are things that will find exotic to you. The same way that when you kuja hapa, they'll find it that it's unique to us here. So I'd say that just be focused. Like unafanya, it takes time. You need to also do your research on things. Take advantage of, nowadays we have a lot of free online programs that you can do, or even like the way people have, YouTube videos with tutorials and all. So you can get to learn a lot. And also at times, also just speak to a friend.
Okay.
Kuna mtu mwenye iko na kitu wenye unataka na pia kuna kitu uko nayo wenye hataka.
Okay.
So
Work
also
smart.
get to work together, and you'll achieve your goals.
So work smart, network, and believe. Dr. Cohen. Dazzle us. Yes.
So I'll say this, communication is to diplomacy what blood is in your body. So once you get it off, then when we have issues with blood, you go for transfusion and all that. So it's the lifeline. And the basic tenet of communication is language. We saw the efforts that the speakers were having, whether it was Namaste from the DVC, whether it was the greeting from the lady, the High Excellency. Language, celebrate your language. I didn't know the importance of it until one time when I was doing my doctorate, I was given work to translate. From my mother tongue, imagine. I translate to English and I'm paid. So I paid my rent for your translation paid my rent. So celebrate your cultural diversity. There is beauty in it. Finally, they say, if you hang around people who know what you know, they do what you do, and feel what you do, or how you feel, the only natural product is repetition and mediocrity. What am I saying? That there is a lot to learn, even from this forum alone. Don't just come sit where you're sitting and go home and you have not networked. This our Father's world has enough. Reach out. Don't be squeezed. There is enough territories to conquer. Go for it.
Thank you. And with my 70 years experience globally, let me give you my piece of advice. You don't believe I have 70 years of experience? With that, mine will be yule ana masikio. Yule ana masikio. To those who don't understand this German language, we mean those with ears. Let them. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the second panel. Thank you for your time. I know many of us are hungry, even me myself, I'm starving. So I can't wait to get to the dining and see what they have prepared for us. So thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. Let's appreciate our panelists, Dr. Leon, Mr. Wanyama, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Brian, Dr. Komen. So thank you so much, and welcome again to Daystar, and I hope to glean on your wisdom. Si tumebarikiwa? So thank you so much, and God bless you. Back to our master of ceremony.
Do we have a master or a mistress? What is the right terminology? Thank you very much.
It's all in all.
And let's give them a round of applause. That was the last of the activity, and I'm so endeared. Thank you so much, Benedict. That was awesome. And the panel, they gave us a lot of insight. And even though we are tired, we have ended well, and we are ending well. Now to the final bit of this. It's just a bit of announcements, and then we are wrapping out. So Makori Gesere, where you are, you will coordinate the gifting session, but we do it in the Vice Chancellor's office. So we are directed that all the guests will be there after lunch. Thank you very much. So you want to put your eye on Gesere? Otherwise you won't be gifted. Then, of course, I want to invite, and these are all our Dupisa students. You did a wonderful job. Ashley Munyasi, where's Ashley? Ashley should be coming to the stage because you're going to give a vote of thanks. And then after that, we are going to have a closing prayer again from one of our students, Njoroge Njau, in that order. And then, of course, the choir they didn't tire. They promised, the Daystar choir promised that they are going to bring the curtain down. However, a couple of announcements that our guests, or the guests and Dupisa student leaders, please direct that the guests go to the Senate room after everything is done, and all students, every person here, this lunch served Pokwa tent, outside the tent. And so Jean Muriungi from the Corporate Affairs Department will guide us as we finish the benediction and prayer. Jean will guide us on the moment of posterity, taking the picture. This is my last mic moment. I'll be Dr. Lydia Radoli from the School of Communication. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, esteemed panelists, invited institutions, fellow students, and all participants, good afternoon. On behalf of the Daystar University Peace and International Studies Students Association and the Department of Peace and International Studies, including the whole Daystar fraternity, I would like to take this moment to thank all our guests and panelists, Ambassador Michael Lotem from the Israeli Embassy, Her Excellency Ambassador Marie Charlotte from Philippines Embassy, Her Excellency Ambassador Adriana Ribeiro from the Brazil Embassy, the Japanese Embassy, the Thailand Embassy in absentia, Honorable Caleb Amisi, representing Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, Dr. Mary Anyona from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Leonard Wanyama, the CEO of the International Relations Society of Kenya, Mr. Bob Nyanja from Cinematic Solutions, Mr. Nelson Salagano from the Rural Urban Social Empowerment Program, and Mr. Brian Wanyama, aka Graf, from the Matatu Matwana Culture, Dr. Leah Komen, the Director of Daystar Alumni Association, as well as our moderators, Mr. Barnabas Awur and Mr. Benedict Songomi, for honoring our invitation and participating in both the panel sessions and the relevant speeches. I would also like to thank our partners, the Kenya Model United Nations, as well as the Daystar Model United Nations, International Relations Society of Kenya, International Relations Students Association of Kenya, hereby represented by Virginia Kemunto from Pioneer University, for giving us their support during the planning of the whole event. I would also like to thank Strathmore University, Ngenia High School, and Pioneer University for also honoring our invitation and coming to join us for this wonderful session. I would also like to thank the Daystar fraternity from our Vice Chancellor, Professor Laban Ayiro in absentia, for giving students platform for organizing such events, our DVC ARSA, Professor Faith Nguru, for representing the Vice Chancellor in the event, as well as providing relevant resources and assistance in the planning of the event. I would also like to thank the School of Arts and Social Sciences, led by our outgoing Dean, Dr. Patrick Musembi, as well as his head of department, Dr. Justus Musia, and all the IR and Peace faculty for also giving their relevant assistance during the planning of this event. I would like to also thank the Diplomatic Week 2024 Planning Committee, consisting of Lecturer Maureen Muturi and Lecturer Abigail Munyao, Evelyn Onyango, the Administrator of School of Arts and Social Sciences, as well as a warm-hearted thanks to my team from Dupisa. That is, I would like to just recognize them. I have Zil Chan, who is the Vice Chairperson, Mercy Adur, who is the Treasurer, Kimberly Kamau, the Secretary, Haifa Marema, PR and Event Manager, Gesare Makori, Athi River Representative, Kimberly and Etale, the Valley Road representative, Edgar Nyambane, Natasha Wetangula, and Mercy Wanjiku, the Congress representatives, and lastly, Nixon Kinywa, the alumni rep. Also our patron, Madam Winnie Chemngorem. Yes, thank you so much. The event would not have been possible without you. I would also like to recognize the team from Corporate Affairs, led by Damaris Kimilu, the security team, led by Christopher Wekesa, Daystar Enterprises, or rather Dell, led by Sonia Mutende, coordinated by by Samuel Owur, the Daystar production unit for coverage, the ICT team for the internet, Dr. Rodoli for her wonderful moderation, and all relevant stakeholders, including staff, the ones that served you, they're even ready for you guys. Thank you so much. Finally, I would like to thank all the students, all Daystar students for gracing this event. We would be here alone if you did not come, yeah? This was for you, and we hope that you have been able to pick something. Once more, thank you so much, and may God bless you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's believe and pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this afternoon. We thank you for this lovely day that you've granted to us. We thank you for this event. We thank you for all activities that have been going on. You know, this is your hand, and it takes your hand to actually go through this process. As we depart, we pray that you may be with us, protect us as we eat, bless us, and be